Welcome back into another edition of the Kickabout here on the Blue Room. I'm your host, Rob Vera. And really, before I say another edition of the Kickabout, this is a very special edition of the Kickabout. And guys, I always like to think every one of my Kickabouts is a very special edition, but this is actually a special edition because we are here to do I guess it's kind of a reunion, everyone. 5 years on from a top 5 UK albums of the 90s special that I hosted along with the guests that we have today. We are back again 5 years later, this time to pick each of our favorite 5 albums of the 80s. And why are we doing this? Because we can, and because music talk is a sport, and because we always know that at the end of the day, unlike sport, music will always be something that comes out in the wash as a win for us. Everyone, welcome back. I've got Les Roberts, Keith Tomlin, and the great Kate Riley James, who is making her first appearance back on the Blue Room. Kate, when was the last time you were on the Blue Room? It wasn't 5 years ago, I think, but maybe it was.
2021,
yeah,
maybe 4 years ago. Yes, it's been a hot minute. It's so good to be back.
Yeah,
it's very, very good to be back. Thank you.
Fantastic to see you. Les, Keith, welcome back, guys. As always, I love talking really about anything with you guys, but I especially love that you are devoting some time to bringing your favorite albums from the 1980s, your favorite UK-based albums of the 80s to the discussion today. How are things, gentlemen?
I'm good, thanks, Rob.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to this. I've been enjoying listening to the album. Some songs I've heard like years ago as a kid, some I've never heard at all, so that was good. One thing that struck me was the lyric recall you get. So I listened to the Christians the other day, an album I've genuinely not listened to probably for about 20 years. And then the lyrics just came back to me straight away. It's crazy. It's keeping out some really useful stuff, but I'm here for it.
I had some of that sensation myself too, with some of the albums that were chosen where I hadn't heard them in years, or they had songs on them that were staples of FM radio growing up, and it all flooded back to me. Keith, you have definitely brought a lot of the Scottish contingent to this discussion today, which I am grateful. Though going through our lists, it's actually it's quite a bit of Scottish representation in all of our lists, I think, combined anyway. But glad you can be here today, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a hot minute, hasn't it? I remember we were talking about it the other day, and Matt shared the tweet from the Blue Room account saying, "Oh, coming soon, the 80s version," and that was 4 years ago.
4 years ago, I know.
Yeah, this is this soon? I mean, time's a relative concept. It might be soon for some people, but no, it's good to be finally sitting down and chatting music for another couple of hours and rumbling through our favorite albums.
Well, thank you, Keith. Like many things associated with the Kickabout and podcasting for me in general, it's really all about best intentions. So don't worry too much about whether or not I'm 4 years late on this. Like we got around to it when we were able to. So, but I'm glad. There's some symmetry. There's something to 5 years on we're doing this. I'd like to think when we do this show for maybe the 2000s, we won't be doing it 5 years from now. My God, that would be way too long. But no, welcome, guys. So glad that you're back for this. Look, let me kind of set the table for everyone here. First and foremost, one of the best things about the Blue Room is sometimes we can do non-Everton pods that have nothing to do with anything just because we feel like it. I'm sure there's a target demographic for this that includes some aspect of our normal listenership and some that this is going to fly completely over your head. That's totally fine. I'm mainly doing this because I wanted to talk to Kate, Keith, and Les, and whether people end up listening to this a lot, I guess, is almost immaterial to me. But I'm just glad to have you guys back. But what we did, again, just as kind of to reset everything, 5 years ago, we did a podcast, which, by the way, is still up on the Blue Room feed. I think we could probably reshare that again if anyone wants to go back and listen to, all of our favorite albums or UK-based albums from the 90s. And part of the reason that I kind of chose the UK-based, categorization of this is that, and really this is kind of pertinent to my whole experience on the Blue Room as the kind of lone American voice on here, is I always find it a good challenge to really come from your perspective and understand, try and learn something new, especially because music is so personal to every one of us. I think it's really interesting to, get into, especially a lot of music that I didn't maybe catch on to when I was younger, but also, frankly, because I was a music radio host for a lot of years, I love music from this time period, regardless of where it's from. But there's just so much gold from the 80s. And I was really interested to see what my three friends would bring to this discussion. Hopefully, the ones that I brought will also be relatively interesting to them. But we're really just kind of focused in on our favorites. So before there are any objections, guys, look, I'm sure that there is a Rolling Stone or a Pitchfork list out there, or a an NME or Melody Maker list out there somewhere of your the best 100 albums from whatever decade. You can Google that, that's fine. This is really very personal for us. These are just the challenge was pick your 5 favorite albums, and as I'm sure we'll go on to discuss, picking those 5 was really hard. We had lots of discussions about this. Now, what we don't know and what the hosts do not know is how we ranked all of our albums. So that'll be kind of a surprise as we go through. We do know the albums in question only because we wanted to spend some time actually listening to all this stuff before we just jumped into a conversation. And that's basically it. So relatively simple premise. Hopefully you get it. And with that, we're going to start with our number 5 albums. And I'm going to kind of go around the horn here. Les Roberts, we're going to start with you, buddy. First and foremost, as you talk, before you get on to your number 5 album, just wanted to give you an opportunity. I know picking 5 was difficult. Did you have some honorable mentions or, ones that you just had a hard time leaving off the list, but you ultimately decided to leave off the list that you wanted to highlight before we get started?
Yeah, there was a few. So there was No Sense of Sin by the Lotus Eaters. There was Pacific Street by the Pale Fountains. Some of Keats as well, where he chose The Queen Is Dead and the Stone Roses. They definitely would have been on my list.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Infected by I chose a different one, which we'll come on to. Yeah, there was loads, and obviously the best of OMD as well. But we won't go into that.
We had a whole argue. I'll just go ahead and say it. I am fundamentally against the best of, even though Kate did that last time with Madonna. Wait, was it George Michael or Madonna?
I just remember getting absolutely panned on the last one. So I'm here to fight this time.
But anyway, whatever, Les. I appreciate you being a good sport. Picked 5 albums, no best ofs, no greatest hits albums.
It was tough though, not only because there were so many albums to choose from, but I think for me, the 80s was more of a decade of singles. And I'll come on to this on my first album as to sort of how I would sort of think about that. But it felt like there was a lot of really, really good singles, a lot of one-hit wonders. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we picked, artists that have done really good albums as well. But I think that was hard because there was a lot of songs that I knew from the decade that I've never really listened to the album. So I tried to pick ones that I listened to as a kid.
Yeah.
And had the album, basically.
Well, Les, it's interesting you say that because I don't think you're off base here. I kind of feel the same. I think because we were all kids in the 80s, most of our attachment to music came through singles, whether it was the radio, whether it was, MTV for me was a huge part of that. But I totally get that. Whereas going back and actually getting attached to these as full albums probably happened more for a lot of us as we got older. So totally understand that perspective.
Okay, well, I'll jump. That leads us nicely onto my number 5. It's Running in the Family by Level 42, the first album I actually ever bought with my own money. It was a cassette. It was £7.49, which seems quite expensive from Woolworths. I only remember the price.
Oh my God.
I know. So I mean, Level 42, I knew a couple of the songs from earlier in the decade, when they were sort of like a jazz funk pop band, really. I think this album sort of made them like regular chart botherers, because it really took off. I think Something About You and Leaving Me Now off World Machine, the previous album, that's how I got into the band. And my junior school teacher at the time actually recorded all the albums and gave me them, because I think it was because he was a red, and we always used to rip the piss out of each other about football. But I think we found this sort of common ground at level 42 as well. So he gave me all the albums basically. So this was the first one that I went out and bought though. And just on the subject of singles, this album's really odd because the first 5 tracks were all released as singles and the second 5 weren't. So it's like side A is really, really good. Like the opener, like Lessons in Love to open the album, is just stunning.
Incredible.
Then it goes into Children's Say, which is brilliant. Then Running in the Family. And I think It's Over.
It's Over's next, yep.
And then, yeah, there's another one to release as a single as well. But then the next 5, they're just nowhere near as good. So I think I probably just hammered side 1, rebound it, and just hammered it again. But I just found it really strange when I was looking back at the album, that was sort of how they'd done it. So side A was dead good and all singles, and side B was probably B-sides. But yeah, I mean, it's just a really stunning album for me. It's properly like bang in the sweet spot of 80s pop music. I think that's sort of just at the end of the mid 80s is when pop music for me really sort of started to pop. Yeah, so that's my choice. Don't know what did anyone else think of it?
It reminds me of Pretty Woman and those kind of like Hollywood, kind of preppy. Do you know what I mean? And preppy's not the right word. Just, I don't know. Does anybody describe the film Pretty Woman as being feel good?
Look, it's a comedy, so look, she seemed like a very empowered sex worker. I mean, I think that's the most important thing.
And she looked amazing. But what I mean is like kind of, but in like a light-hearted, like entertainment kind of. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, I don't want to say Beverly Hills Cop in the same sentence, but in like a recognizable, kind of 80s, even into kind of early 90s, like
it's a very polished sound, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there's something really feel good about it.
Yeah. Well, and Les, when you say polished sound, and by the way, I was surprised. I was kind of, I don't know if surprised is the right word, but I think that if you go through all of our selections as we'll get through, there was much more of the quote polished pop. I think over here, and I think that term probably applies over there. There's a subgenre referred to as sophistopop, which I think that level 42 kind of falls into a little bit as well, especially like this album. But I also think that's true of other albums that you guys picked as well. But like, it's the kind of stuff where I think when I was a kid, I might have rolled my eyes at that kind of polish in pop music, like as my parents' music. And then inevitably, of course, over time, I've really, really learned to really appreciate this kind of stuff. But you talked about side 2, Les. One thing I'll add is I really like Sleepwalkers as one of the tracks on there that I dug at the end. But yeah, and I think the 5th single you were looking for was Children's Say, I believe, or To Be With You Again. I can't remember.
To Be With You Again.
Yeah. But no, I really enjoyed it, and I've only spent just a little bit of time here and there with level 42. Keith, didn't know if you had any thoughts on level 42. They were pretty omnipresent in Britain at that time, but don't know if that was a band that ever kind of got onto your radar.
I'll be honest, no. So obviously I'm coming from the sort of, my introduction to 80s music ironically came quite a bit after my introduction to 90s music. And so I fed back into it. So like, it wasn't one that I'd ever heard until we did the sort of the prep work in the last couple of weeks before this pod. I think Kate's summed it up perfectly there. It is sort of very feel goody, isn't it? It's like putting it on makes you happy. I think
it's got a flat bass as well, so
yeah.
And Kate, I think the one thing I would add to, and I don't know if this is kind of what you're going for with like something about this reminds me of Pretty Woman. I don't know if it's like there's something, and maybe when I was saying sophista pop before, but whenever I hear pop like this, there's definitely a part of me that thinks this is the kind of music that I am listening to while in the back of a really nice, black car with a suit on as I'm headed to a cocktail party, kind of a thing,
Oh my God.
I'm not really a cocaine guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if that got into the mix with this kind of music a little bit, just because it's just so 80s in that way of but yet at the same time, like Level 42, and I think we'll talk about this with some others, like sometimes it would be this sophista pop sheen, but then when you go to the lyrics themselves, they would at times get surprisingly personal, surprisingly like, at times even political, at times, like, so it could be subversive in that way too. But no, I really, Les enjoyed Level 42 quite a bit.
Yeah, nice one, man. And It's Over is such a tearjerker.
Oh, it's over. Always gets me.
It's such a breakup song. It's amazing.
Les, if you had to, and again, one of the things that we're doing for to release along with the podcast is we are going to release a 20-track playlist with each person's favorite track. So I am pinning you down here a little bit, Les, on your favorite track from this album. If you had to pick one, is it Lessons in Love? Is it It's Over? Or is it something else?
It's Children Say, I think.
Ooh, okay. Children Say.
Yeah, I just remember at the time. I mean, I really loved Lessons in Love, but then when that one came out, it was like, yeah, that's the one. So I think.
All right.
We'll go with Children Say.
Children Say. All right.
Nice. So Mark King, the lead singer, and Mike Lindup, the keyboard player, who did the backing vocals. I think that song in particular puts those two together really well. It just the two voices work so well together. And I went to see Level 42 actually about 3 years ago, maybe.
Are they still kicking around? They still doing live?
Yeah, it's still touring. So it's only Mark King and Mike Lindup now of the original band.
Oh, okay. Do you guys remember Heaven 17 by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah, they're still touring, which shocked me.
Yeah, they played Liverpool not long ago.
Yeah.
The nostalgia is strong. You can sell nostalgia to our generation.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. They know that. The Google algorithm knows that about me as well.
That was the gig as well, though. I felt really quite young.
Yeah.
I bet. That's the thing. We're talking about the 80s here, guys, but we're still definitely on the younger end of quote 80s music consumers. So I think that's definitely a good thing. All right. So before we finish up, just as Running in the Family, Level 42 came out in 1987. And one of the things I'm always interested in the dynamic here is, was this an album or an artist that was both popular in the UK and in the US? Just because I think sometimes it's interesting to see, how much crossover there is. Some of these albums, absolutely no traction in the US. Others, remarkably more popular in the US at times. Level 42, this hit #1 on the UK albums charts in 1987, stayed there for 3 weeks. It got as high as number 23 in the US, which actually surprised me because that's pretty high. Just no sense of if Level 42 had any penetration there, but man, Lessons in Love and It's Over, like I think those songs were almost definitely made the radio play even over here for sure. All right, so now we move on to number 5 for Kate Riley James. Kate, welcome back into the Kickabout. I'm so happy you're here. I just want to say before you start, and I do want to hear your honorable mentions, that I think that and I'm not sitting here saying I loved everything you picked, in the exact same way.
Here we go.
No. But what I am saying is that I do think that you and I, there's some symmetry between you and I in terms of a love of pop. I think that you and I kind of both have that a little bit. But before you tell us your number 5, Kate, what were some of your honorable mentions, ones that were tough to keep off this list for you?
All right, honorable mentions for me. I should probably caveat all of my choices, honorable mentions and the top 5, to say that I'm going to mention my dad pretty much every time I talk about an album.
Wonderful.
Everything that you guys can see in the background when you're watching this, it reminded me, similar to Les saying, like about the lyrics and how it comes back to you. The artwork, the album artwork, was on tape cassettes when I first encountered all of this.
Yes.
Right, and they were sacred. They weren't chucked in the glove box. They were placed in the glove. You know, there was like a. And we're not even talking CDs for me at this stage. It was all tape decks, and it was because I'm a 1982 baby. So by the back end of it, I was still single digits, back end of the decade. And I spent an inordinate amount of time driving from Liverpool up to the northeast to see my dad at the weekends. So if it wasn't Atlantic Longwave 252, please, by all means, contact me and tell me that you remember it as well. Then it was one of these albums, essentially, because it played such a massive part in growing up and that kind of downtime, you know, whereas like our kids now are always on tech and stuff. Whenever we travel anywhere, we looked out the window, punched each other when we saw a red car, and we played these albums religiously.
Nice. Did you guys have car games like we did over here back in the 80s?
Yeah, we used to do Eddie Stobart spotting as well. You just shout Eddie really loud and hope your dad didn't crash the car.
Okay. We did. Ours was like I Spy and stuff like
that. Yeah. You know.
Yours sounds way more fun and potentially dangerous. So
one of my cousins came up with a car game called Sheep. And basically, if you see a sheep, you shout sheep and you've won at sheep.
See? The simple ones are the best.
What a terrible game. Especially in Scotland. Having driven around Scotland, Keith, myself, I would imagine you're saying sheep of fucking.
It's very easy to win at sheep.
If you'd have brought in having an older brother and getting punched every time you see a sheep, I feel as if it might have brought on like another element, because then you're like ducking and diving in the back of the car and your dad's trying to hit you behind the driver's seat.
We were punches for yellow cars.
Yes. There's always a coloured car. So anyway, that's my caveat. Okay, honourable mentions: Raw and Uncooked by the Fine Young Cannibals.
Oh yes,
goodness,
that's a really good one.
My dad always used to say that She Drives Me Crazy was written personally about me, so that's always nice. And again, 89, right at the back end of the decade, but like, and they only ever had 2 albums, I believe. You can tell me otherwise if you know. And that was the second, but it was so good, and very, very late to the mix, because I only realized this today, which I'm gutted about, is that like Sweet Dreams Are Made of This by the Eurythmics was 83.
Yeah, dude. Okay. So Kate, my wife called me out on, I told her our list, and she's like, how did the Eurythmics not make anyone's list? And it was one of my honorable mentions as well. I hear you though.
Got it. So many haunting like lyrics, and not necessarily from that album, there were Eurythmics in general, Eurythmics, but and also because as a kid I could never say it, and I've realized at 43 I still find it quite difficult to say. So Annie Lennox. So yeah, there's a couple for me. Fine Young Cannibals, I could kick myself because it's just instantly recognizable and transports me back to being a kid for sure. So so as I say, a lot of this is kind of taken me back to a time that I spent predominantly just with my dad, occasionally with my brother, but saying to you, Les, I can knock lyrics out to all of this with having absolutely no conscious thought about it whatsoever. So my top 5.
Number 5.
I beg your pardon. My number 5 is it has to be Dire Straits. It has to be Brothers in Arms, which it was so difficult to put these in this particular order. And I also only found out recently, my dad was over today, that apparently the track listing was inspired by the Falklands War in 82. So I never knew that. Brothers in Arms is apparently was written in response to stories that they'd heard about Argentinian and British soldiers and the whole kind of like what are we doing for the want of simplifying a war that went on for quite some time. And as you've mentioned it, and I've gone through and I've kind of listened to it, and you kind of click into the lyrics a little bit more, you think, oh, okay, fair enough. And I mean, my track from this album probably should be Money for Nothing, because if you're
but there are other classic tracks on that album too.
Indeed, there is. Nothing brought me more joy, linking back to Shouting Eddie and my dad not crashing the car, than the woo woos in Walk of Life. It made me so happy.
So Walk of Life is your pick? Walk
of Life is my pick. I would get it wrong 9 times out of 10. He would look at me with like, oh God, what am I bringing up here? But again, it's kind of feel good, and it, you know, and it's light, and it, you know, it was just something that we would never, not that we could skip it, but nothing that we'd go and like jam the tape cassette to try and fast forward it a bit.
Yeah.
Back in the day. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, hearing Money for Nothing, and you know, when it takes me back to something that we'd just never be able to recapture as 80s kids. It's just, yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
I love it. I love it. Les, Keith, any thoughts on Dire Straits? I've got a few of my own, but it's, you know, especially from an American perspective. But I'd love your thoughts.
This was one of my honorable mentions. I think when we all started chucking out albums at the very start and sort of honing down our final five, this was very much going to be in my final five. It's just like the quality of, like, the track list is great, but like the quality of the songwriting behind it is just immaculate. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I'm trying to think how to describe this here. It's intense but fun. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the whole thing. It grips you and doesn't stop you you're not allowed to stop listening to this. Every single song's got something a little bit different that just grabs you in a different way. And I'd agree with Walk of Life for the title for the playlist track. I think that edges Money for Nothing for me. Just
Money for Nothing for me. Just because the opening to that track is absolutely incredible.
It's a belter in it.
The drums leading into that guitar riff is still one of the greatest guitar riffs.
Yeah.
And you got Sting doing the backing vocals there, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So it's so good. And then the video as well.
Yes.
It obviously talks about MTV. Doesn't MTV have been around about what, maybe 5 years by then?
Yeah, about 5 years at that point.
Yeah. So but that was like really made for MTV, wasn't it? It was like the old computer graphics, which were really like cutting edge at the time. But yeah, it's brilliant. And what I did like when I listened to it, I had no idea that your latest trick was Dire Straits. So I knew that record, obviously, from like when I was a kid. Wow. So that was a nice surprise, but that is a belter of a record, that. I didn't know. So little gems like that, that's what I loved about this. When you just like hear things like, I did not know that was them at all. So
I had a similar sensation with it, and it's one of those where if I'd heard it and really thought about it, I would have been like, oh yeah, this is Dire Straits. But Walk of Life was one of those songs that I heard on the radio so much, but for whatever reason, I don't think I had mentally connected it to Dire Straits. And look, Dire Straits, the Money for Nothing thing it has an outsized impact over here because of the video. The video is a huge deal because even though, it's not dating well in terms of the graphics look very dated now, at the time there was something very futuristic about it. And, and then combined with this sort of ultra classic guitar riff and the kind of the drum solo leading into that at the beginning, and just the way that thing grooved. And I don't know, it's one of those songs that just still feels really, really classic. I will also want to give some props to So Far Away, the opener. I just think that's such a beautiful song. And again, one theme I noticed throughout, not everyone, but all of the albums that we picked, it seemed like in a lot of cases, the first track really hit you from the very beginning, or it's an immediately recognizable song. In the case of Dire Straits and Brother in Arms, Kate, like the first three tracks are ultra classic. Like they are, if you were doing like a Dire Straits, top 10 songs list, I think I'd have a hard time keeping So Far Away, Money for Nothing, and Walk of Life off of there. But fantastic album.
Incredible. It's so Money for Nothing. Like, it's just hearing people talk about it, when and you hear somebody talk about that opening, you can hear it, can't you? You can almost picture it. And it's just when the guitar kicks in, it's just so clean. It's just like, isn't it? It's like, it's pure. It was hard to not choose it, but Walk of Life pips it for me purely because of the nostalgia.
Money for Nothing is also, if you go listen to the lyrics, it's a satire about like kind of like far right, sitting in front of your TV, getting angry at the world types, which is, at the time you don't really connect as you're a kid. You don't really connect as much to lyrics because they're really just window dressing for the music, which you're really into at the time. But no, again, it's one of those albums where, there's just a lot of, Keith, you even said it, like the lyrically, there's just, Mark Knopfler is just an incredible, like one of our all-time great songwriters. And by the way, going back to the theme we talked about before we move off of Brother in Arms, this was one of those cross, I don't know what you call it, crossing the ocean hits in terms of both its impact in the UK and in America. Number one and I did the research on this, 14 non-consecutive weeks in the UK. So I imagine that it like was number one, and then, some time passed, and then another single came out, and then it was number one again. It was number one for 9 straight weeks on the US Billboard 200. I imagine that's around the time that Money for Nothing came out, because again, it was every hour on the hour being played on MTV. The album track is like 8.5 minutes long, so I think there was obviously like a shortened version of it. But hey, I love me. If you got great guitars, I don't care if you do like an 8-minute version of a song. If it's good, it's good. And then the last thing I'll say on this one, Kate, is, and we saw this quite a bit, the 80s really did love a sub 10 track album. Like this was 9 tracks. I think we thought like, there are a few more that we'll have today that kind of had that too. Hey, nothing. And then I feel like in the late 2000s, we've started to see a slight comeback of the sub 10 track album, which I'm kind of a fan of. I like having, less than 10 tracks if they're good, cut out the fluff and just focus on the great stuff. So
Yeah.
Sorry, Rob, quickly. Sorry, I've got the list of number ones.
Oh,
right. So Dire Straits got to number one, 25th of May, 1985.
Okay.
Then the Style Council was in the week after, for 2 weeks. Then the Style Council, then Brian Ferry, then Marillion, then Bruce Springsteen. Then on the 3rd of August, it got to number one again for 2 weeks. And then it got number one for 10 weeks. From 18th of January 1986 to the 29th of March.
God, so much competition back then too.
It was a good 8, 9, 10 months after it had been released that it had its longest stretch.
When did Live Aid happen?
It was 85, wasn't it?
85, wasn't it?
85.
Does it kick on? Oh, how interesting!
I reckon.
I mean, it came out in May of 85, so it was just right in the middle of
86. I would imagine maybe, but yeah, quite interesting, isn't it?
All the best things in life happened in May 1985.
The first stretch in November 82.
Oh, man. All right.
Was some month for the Toffees as well.
Hey.
All right, fantastic. All right, Keith Tomlin, you're up next, my man. Your your honorable mentions and your number 5.
So I'm going to skip my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Purely because they are all albums that someone else has picked, and I don't want to ruin the fun.
That's fine.
As previously mentioned, Dire Straits there. There's another 2 or 3. There is another one that sort of ties into my number 5. So my number 5 is The Queen is Dead by the Smiths from 1986. Just an absolute belter of an album. I almost didn't pick it in favor of Meat is Murder, which is another great Smiths record, but this one just about edged it for me. And it's actually the first of 2 albums in my list where you sort of have to separate the art from the artist a little bit, because Morrissey is one of life's great pricks. And only the presence of Johnny Marr redeems that band. But I mean, to give the boy his due, he didn't half churn out a 80s banger. So we'll let him off with his prickery for now. It could have gone higher on my list, to be fair. It was one of those. My 5 on the list, I've probably chopped and changed the order about 6 times today.
Yeah, it's hard. That's the point, Keith. This is hard.
It's so hard to qualify. I just think it's sort of, obviously you got the anti-monarchist sort of protest feel to the album. There's a couple of jaunty little numbers in there. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, which as part of my research into this, like as we were doing, found out that like the jaunty sort of upbeat style of it hides the true meaning of the lyrics, which was about the Smiths split from Rough Trade record label before they signed with obviously the sort of global powerhouse of EMI. And then you've got 2 songs on there that are just the perfect modeling odes to heartbreak and unrequited love in There Is a Light That Never Goes Out.
That's my favorite track on the album, by the way.
I know it's over. Well, it's probably my favorite track on the album, and the lyric, it features probably my favorite Smiths lyric, where in the darkened underpass I thought my chance had come at last, but then a strange fear gripped me and I just couldn't ask. And there's something so powerful about that, and it sort of touches on a take your chances in life, because you don't know, if you don't ask, you don't get. But I didn't pick it for my playlist song.
Okay.
I went a little bit sort of off chain on that one. And my playlist song, I've gone with The Boy with the Thorn in His Side.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's not a wrong. There's nothing wrong with that pick. That's a great song.
So,
it's one of their all-time.
There you go. I present to the board for my critique on the Smiths.
All right. I want to add this, and Kate, Les, I definitely want your thoughts on this too. I think that, you know, you kicked it off by talking about the whole kind of art versus artist part of this equation, Keith, which, like, I knew that would come up, and I totally get it. And I wondered kind of how I was really curious to kind of understand how, you know, you're able to, like, you view this album in light of, we'll call them a problematic, element to a band like that. I mean, I think that's the thing, like, you know, Johnny Marr, like, what made the Smiths transcendent is really, like, regardless of how you feel about Morrissey, there is no Smith, like, what makes the Smiths special, you can't have without him, and you can't have without Johnny Marr. Yeah. And I hate to, that sounds like I'm denigrating the rest of the band who have their own, talents, but, like, let's be real. It's those two are what made the Smiths stand out and apart from these other bands. And, like, Johnny Marr's guitars, and I can think of the sound, like, in the same way that, like, a lyric sticks out to you for an album, I can think of a guitar riff that sticks out to me half a dozen times in various places on not only this album, but, like, you know, I'd have a hard time picking my favorite. Like, Self-Titled is an incredible album as well. Someone in my mentions the other day, they love Hatful of Hollow. Like, it's weird how everyone has their own kind of particular affinity for certain Smiths albums, you know. I would probably go, Keith, with if I think Queen is Dead probably just edges out the Smiths for me too. But man, Morrissey, like, yes, he's very Morrissey. He's very Moz, but he's never been better, I think, than he was on this album in terms of the songwriting, the vocals, everything. I have other solo Morrissey songs I like. I have other Smith songs I like, but, like, There's a Light That Never Goes Out is one of maybe my 10 favorite songs of the entire decade. It's an incredible masterpiece of, musicianship and lyrical construction and all those things. But Kate, Les, love to hear your Smiths thoughts, just because I do feel like the Smiths are one of those bands that in America you learn about more retroactively, as they were a big deal in the 80s and they were huge, and then you get into them and you're like, oh, I get it. But what I probably don't have a great perspective of is culturally, like, how big a deal the Smiths were as you got, like, even maybe if you didn't discover more till the 90s or whatever. But, I probably feel like I'm missing some of the cultural impact of the Smiths in a way that only, those in England can grasp. But you tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Les, I reckon you'll have way more of an input here. Growing up, no awareness whatsoever. If it didn't come under my parents' radar at the time, it didn't filter down to me. That said, I Know It's Over is beautiful. And I wanted to love Big Mouth Strikes Again purely because I feel as if it fits the bill. It didn't speak to me, and I was disappointed. However, yeah, I think I Know It's Over will be the track I'll take off that, Keith. I reckon that'll stay with me. That'll make some serious Spotify playlists for me. So yeah, definitely way further down the line for me, Rob. I think it was probably a boyfriend who was mad into it and picked up the odd track there.
Yeah. All right.
As a kid in the 80s, the Smiths were like weirdos to me.
Oh yes, they still are weirdos to me.
You know what I mean, though? Because as a kid, and like I was listening to like Level 42 at the time, and that they were a band who occasionally had a radio hit like Panic, and I knew they had a song called Girlfriend in a Coma, and it's like they were just a bit odd. Heavy. So I imagine as a teenager in the 80s, they would have been perfect because they would have been like upset your parents kind of thing. What the hell are these? But it's always like the whole thing with the Smiths is the lyrics are at odds with the tune and everything, aren't they? So like Girlfriend in a Coma being a case in point. On this album, for me, it just there's just not one song that misses. It is like right through, absolutely maintains that quality all the way through. I came to the Smith properly in the 90s. I knew a few of the songs, that, as I said, from hearing it on the radio as a kid. I heard How Soon Is Now, which I vaguely remember from the 80s. I heard that on the Best Album in the World Ever, Volume 2. And then I went back and listened to the Smith singles and then listened to the albums. And yeah, they're just a stunning 80s band. Very different. You can't pigeonhole them with anything else in the 80s. They were very much their own sound and did their own thing. Lyrically, on this one, it's The Queen Is Dead. And it's this bit where he goes, so I broke into the palace with a sponge and a rusty spanner. She said, hey, I know you and you cannot sing. I said, that's nothing. You should hear me play piano. Just incredibly stupid lyric, but absolutely brilliant. This would have been on my list probably. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't pick because Keith did. So good stuff. I'm glad it made it on because it is just a stunning album.
Yeah. Just to kind of wrap up on The Queen Is Dead, unsurprisingly reached number 2 on the UK album charts in 1986, number 70 in the US, which is not totally insignificant. I think that the Smiths made, I want to say the Smiths ended up on certain soundtracks here and there to some of the kind of, some of the, movies of the 80s here that gave it some, I want to say they were on, God, I should know this, but I feel like they were on the Pretty in Pink soundtrack somewhere, and I could be wrong about that, but I'm not totally sure. But and then,
yeah, I think
it was Pretty Woman.
I don't think it was Pretty Woman, but I will double check.
Imagine a version. The Smiths do the whole soundtrack of Pretty Woman. Wow.
Oh my God. Big Mouth Strikes Again and The Boy with the Thorn in His Side. Those were the two main singles. But again, I think Queen Is Dead is one of those albums whose legacy is probably even grown beyond how popular it even was at the time. But no, fantastic pick. Okay, anything else on the Smiths or Queen Is Dead before we move on, guys? Okay, all right. Let's get this Scottish train, properly rolling once again. Keith mentioned before he didn't want to name some of his honorable mentions because they were in other people's lists, and I know for a fact that my number 5 album was in his list. And that is the greatness of Once Upon a Time by Simple Minds. Simple Minds, let me tell you something about them. Because I had just alluded to, the kind of the soundtrack era of the 80s. Soundtracks were, I don't know if soundtracks were as big a deal over there, but soundtracks were a gigantic deal in the 80s and 90s here, especially to certain movies like the John Hughes movies, the Pretty in Pink and Breakfast Club. And Breakfast Club certainly was the vehicle that made Simple Minds huge stars here, because Don't You Forget About Me came from actually the same recording sessions as Once Upon a Time in 1985, but yet was not, at least over in the US, was not actually on the album. And which is hilarious in some ways, because again, we have a sub 10 track album here, and they were just like, No, we don't need to put we don't need to put "Don't You Forget About Me" on the album in the U.S., which I think is hilarious. But I think that also speaks to the fact that in the '80s there were still, we talked about at the beginning, still very singles driven cult, like approach to this. Like one of my honorable mentions was "Power, Corruption, and Lies" by New Order. They recorded Blue Monday in the same recording sessions, but they released that as its own kind of separate single, which, I get it, whatever. You feel like you can sell it that way, you do that. Joy Division did some of that before, but lots of these bands did this. But Once Upon a Time by Simple Minds, a couple of things, like first and foremost, so many great songs on it. I will just tell you right now that as much as I love every track on the album, Alive and Kicking to me is the song that I play when I've just gotten the news that I've beaten cancer and I'm walking out of the hospital with my hands held high and I'm like, fuck yeah, everything is like I'm alive. And there is something so affirming and just electric and full of life about that song. But so much of that is really throughout the entirety of the album. Sanctify Yourself, all the things she said, Ghost Dancing, all singles, incredible ones from that. And one thing I will point out too is that for Simple Minds, I think Once Upon a Time was like them going for it in terms of, we want to have a, I guess maybe the best way to put it is, we want to be stars. Like, this is the album where we're going to make an arena rock ready type of album. The producer of this album, just to give you guys some context on this, is Jimmy Iovine or Iovine. Do you guys know that name? Does that even ring remotely familiar to you? Okay, so Jimmy Iovine was a I think he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but he is one of the all-time great kind of super producers. Let me just to give you a little bit of that context in particular, he was the producer of albums by Dire Straits, 1980, Making Movies, Tom Petty, several, both U2 albums, Bob Seger, Bruce Springsteen, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Stevie Nicks, John Lennon, The Pretenders. He did Rattle and Hum by U2, which is a really good one. Did a lot of Bruce Springsteen's like live albums. And Patti Smith and Edgar Winter and all, like all these, like he was just kind of rock royalty. Simple Minds went to him and were like, I think that either I don't know who came to who, but they were clearly looking for a producer who could take them to the sort of that next level of being like, hey, we're going to perform this album at Live Aid and we're going to perform this album in front of, giant audiences. And I'll be damned. Like sometimes you view that approach as being like I hate the term sell out. Like, I think that's the stuff you said when you were teenagers about bands. Oh, they're selling out. No, they were just going for it. They wanted to be stars. And I'll be damned if they didn't pull it off with this album, because again, sort of like maybe this is true of Dire Straits and it's true of them. Simple Minds they're a Scottish band rather, but I didn't even know that they were not from America until I was an adult, just because their music was everywhere in the 80s. And anyway, I love this album. This album makes me incredibly happy. It is a mood changer album. If I need to put on something to just, lighten the mood, that's how I feel about it. Guys, thoughts on Keith? I'll come to you first, just because I know this was one of yours that you absolutely loved and was hard to keep off of your list, but tell me a little bit about what you love about Once Upon a Time by Simple Minds.
This is one of my heretofore unreleased honorable mentions. Just like you say, it's balls to the wall from the first minute. And like you touched on, the fact that they had the huge sort of commercial success with Don't You Forget About Me. Obviously off the back of the it featuring on the Breakfast Club, and it really sort of launched them in America. And then they turned around and just went, you know what? Yeah, let's not put it on the. I imagine at the time, so many people rushed out, bought the album, got home to put it on, and they were like, what the fuck? Where's that song?
Where is this?
Why is it not on here?
My theory is that they were trying not to cannibalize sales of the Breakfast Club soundtrack at the time. Like, part of me wonders if that had anything to do with the calculus for this, though I don't know that for sure.
I mean, it's a good conspiracy theory. Let's peddle that and get it out there. Yeah, like you said, it's arena rock, isn't it? It's very bold sound. You can picture it being played to huge crowds singing it back. I think there's like a lot of it's not a Scottish sounding album. Right. It's a very Americanized, like American rock style album, isn't it? It's not like a lot of Scottish bands from the time, Bell and Sebastian and the like. They were very distinct Scottish sound to them, whereas this one you wouldn't know, you wouldn't have a clue until you heard Jim Kerr speak, and then you'd be in absolutely no doubt. But yeah, tremendous choice. Fully deserves its place in the pantheon of great 80s UK albums.
Yeah, I think for me, Rob, like you said, Keith, it's Simple Minds I knew they were Scottish at the time, but they didn't sound like a Scottish band. They did sound very Americanized, really. And I think that soundtrack thing and that sort of big anthemic sound that they had on that album, that wasn't really very typical of what you would imagine from a British band at the time, I don't think. But yeah, I'd never listened to this album before. I put it on in the gym, which was a great choice, to be fair. It's a gym album.
It's a great gym album, yes.
It's a very motivational album. It's like, it could be a motivational playlist on its own. It's I was pleasantly surprised by this, because I've never really listened to Simple Minds, to be honest, outside of, the hits that they've had. And being reintroduced to all the things she said was just mind-blowing. I love that record, and it's one of those ones that I'd completely forgotten that I knew, and then it came on and I was like, oh my god, this is brilliant. And that recall, like you said before, Kate, when it takes you back, this wasn't to a particular place, it was just to a time, and it took me right back, and it was just, I was made up to listen to this album.
I love that. I that's, to me, the most powerful thing about music is that time machine element of it that is totally visceral, and for some of us it really hits. And I sometimes wonder if like children of this generation will have that ability to connect to it without the cloud of like, oh yeah, but I saw it on TikTok, and that's, it just feels like there's a different way we associate, but maybe it's just different, and it's not, I'm not saying it's better or worse, but no. And one thing you guys said, and just as a hint, we're going to get to some, I'll just say, Keith, some more aggressively Scottish sounding albums on this show today. I will say that when I was a kid growing up, I don't know if I thought of him as American so much as I just thought there was this magic thing that happened in pop music where if you were from England or Australia, once you started singing, the accent just sort of disappeared. Like NXS is a great example of this. They're Australian, but my God, there's nothing about them when I was a kid that I thought sounded particularly Australian. Tears for Fears, fell into this. I've got a couple others that I'll have on this list that may have fallen into that. Dire Straits, frankly, like Dire Straits is an English band that I had no idea was English until I was an adult. So I think it's amazing how that is. I don't know if that's an American sound or if it just, I'm American and I didn't hear accents at all, but yeah, no, absolutely love these. The one thing I did forget is to throw out some of my honorable mentions before, Les, we turn right back to you. But I mentioned before Power, Corruption, and Lies by New Order, Love and or Electronic by The Cult. I love The Cult. Had to give a little bit of Everton representation on this today. Black Celebration and Music for the Masses by Depeche Mode. Depeche Mode, keeping them off here was difficult for me as well. Raw Like Sushi by Nina Cherry is a random one that I want to throw out there. And Lexicon of Love by ABC. Duran Duran, both self-titled and Rio. I'd have a hard time choosing between those. And then you guys mentioned Style Council before. Cafe Blue by Style Council. It's such a great album, but So difficult to pick those, but all right, we're through our first 5, and it took us a little bit, but we'll get this moving. It doesn't matter.
It's all right. We're only an hour in.
Yeah, we're good. We're not even quite an hour yet. We're not good. So, Les, we're right back to you for your number 4.
Okay, sorry, another couple of quick honorable mentions.
Oh, yeah.
Electric, which you put me onto about a year or so ago.
Oh, the Johnny Marr and
the Cult.
Oh, Cult Electric. I'm sorry, I was thinking of electronic.
Oh no, electronic. I loved electronic as a kid as well.
Yeah, no.
Weirdly, Get the Message, that was used on Granada Goals highlights program. There's a little bit of trivia for you there. It was, yeah. a little bit of music to introduce the goals. It was they used Get the Message by Electronic, which is great.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, Songs from the Big Chair, Tears for Fears. That almost made my list because that is a wonderful. Well, Everybody Wants to Rule the World is one of the best records of the 80s.
Oh, it's so good. Oh,
yeah, it is.
My next choice is going to be Soul Mining by The.
Yeah. Shout out Mike Diasha, by the way, Les, because that is a Mike Diasha really turned me on to that album when I ended up putting it on my radio show a few years ago because Soul Mining is such a banger.
Yeah, it's incredible. So as a kid, I knew songs like The Beaten Generation, Heartland. Oh, what else was there? This Is the Day, which is on this album. So there was a few songs that I knew about, and Uncertain Smile as well, which I think that's going to be my pick for the playlist. Uncertain Smile.
Okay.
It was a tough call because there's just, again, this is another one of those albums that like track 1, 2, is it 9 or 8 to 9 tracks on this? Everyone is brilliant. Soul Mining is just such a haunting record. Weirdly, I got put onto that by Keith Mullen from The Farm on Twitter about 10 years ago because I'd never listened to this album at that point. I only knew a few of like the songs of it, and I'd listened like I just dipped in and out, but never really listened to an album. Then he just put Soul Mining on Twitter, and I clicked on it. And I remember I was in work listening to it while I was working, and it was just such a really great haunting song. And it was like I just went back to the album then, and then it's got things like Giant and Uncertain Smile on, which I knew as a kid and I loved. But yeah, I think Matt Johnson's just a really, really, really good prescient songwriter. Like the lyrics to his songs still stand up today. In a way, because shit's not really got any better from the 80s to now. It's like potentially got progressively worse, or at least stayed just as shit. But his songs, his lyrics are so prescient. His songwriting is just so good. And on Uncertain Smile, I think it's Jules Holland actually does that crazy, insane piano solo, which makes a lot of sense because it's like if you're gonna get a piano player in the 80s, get Jules Holland in. It's like if you're gonna get someone to play the harmonica, it was Stevie Wonder. He'd do harmonica. He did harmonica on There Must Be an Angel, didn't he? By the Rhythmics.
Oh, did not know that.
Oh, did you know that?
Yeah, another fun trivia fact for you there.
Love fun trivia. Love fun trivia.
I'm just riffing on the 80s now, but yeah, that's my album, my next album. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks of it because I realise it's not at times an easy listen. But I think there's just enough nice pop sensibilities from the 80s to carry you through, like for anyone.
Nice. This Is the Day for me.
Yeah.
Got it. Not an album. I won't even lie. Oh, so many revelations. Also had no idea that Simple Minds weren't. I'm sat here like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. It's fine. Obviously, everybody knows this. And you guys were all like, oh yeah, we didn't know. It's like, oh my god.
You didn't know. You didn't know what now, Kate? Simple
Minds weren't American. It just.
No, they're very much Scottish. Yeah.
Okay. Also, and just by way of like the kind of gender jump in, Don't You Forget About Me. My kids know that word for word because it was picked up in Pitch Perfect, the film, and because it was then made into something that was a bit more cult and so that's not even via me. So it just shows you the lasting power of 1980s bangers.
Yeah,
straight through, not through TikTok. Yeah, I won't lie, lads. I had no notion of the at all, but stuck it on Dog Walk, and it's kind of, yeah, it was nice. It was like, yeah, it's something a bit different. It's quite refreshing. But you're right, it's not always an easy listen. I don't think it's full album track listing.
It's a grower. It's a grower, I think.
Yeah, I like this. Yeah, something really different for me though.
Good stuff.
Keith, any soul mining thoughts?
Yeah.
That seems like a loaded question. Sorry.
Like this was not on my radar at any point before
Okay.
we got to doing this pod, and similarly Dog Walk whacked it on. I found it's gonna sound almost an uncomfortable listen.
Mm-hmm.
Like
and we're not required to like every album that we listen to, by the way, guys. So if you didn't like it, that's totally fine. But yeah,
no, not saying it's a bad album. It's like the style, the sort of synth style about it is very much at odds with the lyrics and the tone of the songs. So it's one of those. I think I'm gonna have to go away and listen to it at least another 6 times to formulate like how I actually feel about it. But it is, it's very, very sort of different, isn't it? It's not like your average 80s synth album. There's so much more depth and nuance to it.
The beyond being like, hard to Google before there was Google, is a band that I also did not come on into until much later in life. And I agree with you, Keith, in that it's not an album that you listen to and it's just immediately, oh yeah, I get it. Though it's one of those where with repeated listens, I've appreciated it more, especially lyrically. And I think part of the reason stylistically it can be a bit jarring and frankly, though, part of what makes it unique from its time, because it came out in '83, was that it was sort of straddling the line between the early '80s post-punk, that was, that was kind of the darker tone stuff, thinking like the early Joy Division and the early Cure stuff and stuff like that. To this one was straddling a line between that and like new wave, like because it had a lot of synth elements that was sort of a dark synth, but also sort of post-punk sound. But the more I listened to it, I found the lyrics really started to get me and hook me a little bit more or less. And I don't know if lyrics are kind of what you love about this album, but like This Is the Day, Kate, you said that was the one that stuck out. Like that's my favorite. And I'm a basic bitch, and that's my song I like off this album. But one of the lyrics, you smile and you think about how much you've changed. All the money in the world couldn't buy back those days. Like, fuck, this was their debut album and they're probably in their 20s, but yet as a guy in his mid 40s who, we get to a point where life starts settling down. We've got things figured out. Maybe, money wise, we're getting to a point where we're not maybe struggling in the same ways that we certainly were when we were younger. To then think about how you can have all that security and yet, there's a part of you that if I could live in that day again, live in that for just a day or 2 days, like there's certain limits to what you're able to do. And it's just a weird way of reflecting on the world. So I really, however you want to pronounce it, it became a grower for me for sure, Les. But yeah, definitely an interesting.
I think it is. I don't think it's one that's going to sort of grab you like straight away at first, apart from obviously tracks like This Is the Day and Uncertain Smile, tracks like that, which are definitely like sort of more upbeat. Just before we move on, I went to see them in January. Was this January or last January? Whatever. And he did the new album, which they just released it, the whole of that, and then a best of. And when he was introducing the songs, he introduced This Is the Day as like one of his more hopeful and uplifting songs he's written. So that kind of tells you all you need to know. And the first line as well.
A funny bit.
The first line, well, you didn't wake up this morning because you didn't go to bed. You were watching the whites of your eyes turn red. That just gives me shivers. That it's like, oh my God, yeah, I've been there. Not nice, don't like it. Don't want to go back there. Thank you very much.
That's hilarious. So just to clarify, Uncertain Smile is your pick for this one?
I think I'm going to go for that just for the crazy insane kind of riff.
It's one of mine that I really like as well. Kate Riley James, you are back up again. Your number.
Smile, Rob.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Les.
One more version on 75 RPM, which is the best of the. It's got a different version of Uncertain Smile. So instead of the piano solo, it's got a saxophone solo, which is a little bit more 80s sound for me.
Yeah.
Every good 80s album's got a sax solo in it.
Dude. Were you guys also not, I don't want to say surprised, but did you guys kind of notice you were listening to these albums? Boy, there's a lot of saxophone in these albums. Even ones where you're like, this is a rock album, and yet there's sax in this, like That's that's good to know. I love a sexy 80s sax. It's a very saxy time. And no, I'm totally with you there. Okay, Kate, you're number 4.
Oh, the gorgeous George. Oh, I'm going with Faith. George Michael, 1987. Again, at the time, no idea because I was like 9. However, late 90s, Kate was like, oh, damn. And he was the most beautiful soul songwriter, just music, just musician in its entirety. And I know, Keith, if you want to jump in with your honourable mention off the back of this as well, because I know that it was a hard one. And this era of George, my track, I should say, off of this album is "Kissing a Fool," and when we talked about earlier in the week and whatnot, when we were batting our ideas around and stuff, Les, I think you'd said words to the effect of that, like jazzy and bluesy Michael or George Michael or whatever it was, or jazzy George Michael was the best one. You know, when it's like galaxy chocolate. It's just so smooth. It's beautiful, and as it goes for that kind of quiet, unassuming, romantic kind of ballad, but not like in your face. And because he had that unique ability of being able to just kind of build intensity in his voice, that it will knock you over. And I just think "Kiss the Fool" is just, it feels as hopeless as it does hopeful, and I think it's absolutely timeless. It is beautiful, and this iteration of George Michael is what filtered through into an awful lot of the 90s fashion scene in terms of, he brought the supermodels together, in the videos and everything that came after it. And something just off the back of this, which I ended up shouting at Alexa, having spoken to the, having listened to the album, was to play the live version of "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me" with Elton John. And I just thought, imagine what it must have felt like to have been there when that was recorded, whatever gig that was when that happened, because especially when you hear it on a really good quality speaker as well, it transports you somewhere. And I think that is all orchestrated through George Michael. I just think his songwriting and his ability to mix it up from the Speedos in Wham and Club Tropicana to oh my God.
Shout out Club Tropicana. I love that song. I love that album. I love how George.
Over to you, mate. I know there's an honorable mention in there somewhere.
No, fantastic. Keith.
Yeah, again, this was one that could easily have made my top 5. It's just George, isn't it? Like, what else can you say about George? He is, as Kate said there, a beautiful soul who pours honey in our ears and forces us to listen to it gurgling down. It's such a good record. I mean, obviously you've got Faith there. I love "I Want Your Sex." In fact, it's nearly 10 minutes long. It's essentially 3 separate songs rolled into one. He's just gone, fuck convention. I'm just gonna put all this together.
Keith, you have to come on as many times as you can on one track. I mean, if you can do it once, you gotta do it 5, 6, 7 times.
It's a beautiful, beautiful album. I'm going to agree with Kate again on the podcast on the playlist track. I think "Kissing a Fool" is a majestic choice, and it's such a good song to finish an album on.
Les, thoughts on George Michael? I don't know if this ever hit your wheelhouse, but curious.
Yes, well, my dad really liked George Michael, so I sort of listened to that. So my George Michael albums, Listen Without Prejudice.
Yes.
Album, and I absolutely loved it, which was 1990, so just missed the cut on this one anyway. Yeah. But this album it's fantastic. Levi's 501 and Leather Jacket George is possibly the best George, I think. To come out of Wham and to make an album this polished and just so good and go a little bit of a different direction. I think Kate, the song you picked, what was "Kissing a Fool," the jazzy element of that, I think it leads on to what he's going to do in Listen Without Prejudice, doesn't it? It goes into that sound a bit more.
Yeah.
I think my choice of song for this would be One More Try. It's just a
so gorgeous.
beautiful record. Yeah, absolutely love this album. Could not speak of it highly enough. And it was nice to go back to it because I'm not listening to this in beards.
Yeah. Well, 10 years later, so this was 87. So even in 97, the likes of like I Want Your Sex Parts 1 and 2, I'm like turning that down in my room. So I don't know. I mean, after all of that time, it's like, oh no, I should probably so it's again, like, you know, the teenage attachment, you know, with like it's a little bit rebellious, but you know, in a way that's really different because it's not at all political, or it's I think romantic is the word. You know, he never kind of hid that. You know, he was always kind of like straight up about just go, as Keith has said, balls to the wall, quite literally. You know, he would you knew what he was feeling and what he was going through. I just think that's such a powerful album for me. Yeah, definitely a winner.
As an MTV kid of the 80s, I cannot tell you, you know, were these like kind of, I don't know that I would call them gay feelings per se, but they were definitely feelings of, this is the most attractive yet still badass man I've ever seen, as the camera pans down while the organ plays and you're seeing that leather jacket and those jeans and that guitar. And I'm like, dude, this guy must get so many chicks, was the immediate first thing I thought. When I was 8, I thought, this guy is amazing. Look, the thing about Faith is, as an album, like I think in my research, this is pretty easily the most commercially successful of, I think, all the albums that we picked.
Oh, okay.
I think it is. Just to give you a sense, there were 6 singles off of this album. Kissing a Fool actually was the 6th.
Yeah.
But it was actually even more popular in America, Faith, than it was in the UK.
Oh, right.
It had 4 Billboard #1 singles on this album. Faith, Father Figure, which is my personal favorite on the album, One More Try, and Monkey, which actually I don't love Monkey, but I kind of get it. But it was #1. But then Kissing a Fool was #5. I Want Your Sex was #2. Like, this thing was an absolute juggernaut of an album. And, you know, it did have that ability, to your point, Kate, of like, it was so it was so made, you know, just because he was just a genius, because, you know, other than being really good looking and having an incredible voice and being able to write amazing songs, he had very little going for him, right? And so when he would do that, and then it's not like he had to try to be commercially viable in the way we talk about Simple Minds, sort of like saying, we're going to go for it on this album. George Michael always had that, right? And then when he did it, he was still able to include stuff that was still just edgy. I think edgy is the word I'm looking for here, in terms of the sexual component to it. But it also, like, this was, you know, not too far from, you know, when like Salt and Pepper would come out with, you know, Let's Talk About Sex, or like that stuff was becoming more mainstream in the late 80s and early 90s and stuff like that. But no, dude, look, Faith is an immaculate album. And the fact that it's his solo debut is pretty shocking. I mean, granted, you have that on-ramp of Wham to lead up to it, but no, Faith is incredible. It's one of those albums that I'm disappointed, and I'm going to rectify this soon, that I don't actually have on vinyl. I feel like I really need to find a copy of this, but no, what an album. Last thing I'll say before we move on, if you get a chance on Netflix to watch the Wham documentary, I cannot recommend that enough.
I haven't seen that yet.
So good. It's narrated by Andrew. Oh gosh, why am I blanking on his name? The other half of Wham, and I don't want.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were great friends. It's such a loving. It's basically it's about Wham, but it's really about George Michael, and it's an incredible watch. I can't recommend that enough. But
okay.
No, fantastic choice. Okay, Keith, moving along. You're #4, my man.
#4 is my indulgence album. It's my guilty pleasure.
Okay.
I'm bringing you all along with me. It is 1988's Sunshine on Leith by the Proclaimers.
Now we get into the aggressive Scottish sounding.
Sponsored by Iron Brew.
Exactly. There were, including honourable mentions, there are arguably.
No, Keith's.
Did we lose
Oh,
you?
did he freeze? I didn't know if
of the
Keith
80s
froze.
or of any.
Oh, we lost you, mate.
Oh, I'm back.
Yeah,
Am I back?
No, just repeat that one more time, Keith.
I'll chuck some more coal in the furnace in a minute. Yeah, what I was saying, it's one of those. There's probably better albums than this from the 80s that I could have picked, more commercially successful, whatever. There is no album from either the 80s or any following era or previous era that makes me feel how listening to this album makes me feel. It's just pure talk to the roots Scottishness. It's obviously it's almost like it's influenced it's almost like a country style album, but transported to urban Edinburgh rather than sort of the Midwest in America. Obviously, there's strong roots through the album that point to the brothers' sort of Scottish nationalist and independence leaning feelings. And weirdly enough, it was like the album was more sort of commercially successful in places like Canada and Australia and New Zealand than it ever was in the UK. And I think that's owing to huge sort of pockets of Scottish expat communities out there. And it drags you home. And it's a beautiful album. It's a great album. You've got Cap in Hand, which is strongly sort of anti-union. I can't understand why you'd let someone else rule your own land is the lyric, which a lot of us can probably touch on. You've obviously got the iconic I'm going to be 500 miles, a staple of any Scottish wedding. And conversely,
oh, really? Is that
funeral.
A big wedding song over there, Keith? I didn't know that.
It's a big it's a big wedding playlist song. It always tends to that and Loch Lomond always tend to round out the night. Loch Lomond's where everyone gets in a big circle and does what I've seen described as that weird Scottish mosh pit. So if you ever get invited to a Scottish wedding, brace yourself for the end because it's feral. And then you got Sunshine on Leith, you got the title track, which is just, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's the best football crowd ballad / song there is out there. Forget the dirge from Carousel. Forget any of your others. It's just, it's beautiful. When you hear the, and especially like, I don't know if you've ever seen clips of the Hibs fans after they won the Scottish Cup in, when was it? A few years back now. But it was the first time they'd won it in like over 100 years. And then you got the clip of the whole Hibs end, about 25,000 of them singing along to Sunshine on Leith. It's just haunting. And it nearly became my playlist song, but it didn't, because in a nod to Scotland making the World Cup for the first time in nearly 30 years, I've picked I'm On My Way.
Okay.
Yes. Love it.
Love it.
So, yeah, there you go. I've indulged myself now in Scottishness. So please feel free to bask in the Scottish feeling.
I have nothing but the coolest memories of flying to Zaragoza in northern Spain on Boxing Day years ago and flying to Barcelona and having to drive to Zaragoza, 4 of us in a car singing I'm going to be 500 miles on repeat for the majority of the journey and just doing the da-da-da from the front to the back of the car with all the windows down, trying to keep us awake for a friend's wedding. Absolute peak memories. Never gets old, mate.
It sounded like it might have been a punishment for losing a bet or something like that. If you're having to sing it that many times in a row.
Stayed laughing. It was brilliant.
Keith, I want to. So this is one of the reasons that I love doing this exercise, if you will, or is because, and I did 7 years of a weekly music show, and of course that made me go down, and it was focused on 80s, 90s, and 2000s music, and so I would go down all these rabbit holes, but specifically with bands that I think I had always considered, okay, well, that's a one-hit wonder, right? And the Proclaimers are a perfect example of that, because they have all the ingredients for like what I would call an American one-hit wonder, which is, there's kind of a almost gimmicky sort of chorusy hook to it. There is, if you can throw in an accent, and my God, did they throw in an accent? They nailed that part of it for sure. It's sort of like, another example of this from Australia is like Midnight Oil, Beds Are Burning, was huge in America. And if you didn't know any better, you'd think there was nothing. Midnight Oil had never done anything else, and they had lots of really good albums, but that was kind of fell in that same kind of vein. So when I finally sat down to listen to this, I think, Keith, the thing I was most kind of, I don't want to say shocked, but sort of surprised by is that it almost felt like a country album at times. Like the way I think of like the pedal steel sound that they use on some of the tracks that I thought was really interesting, and how, some of it sounded very like kind of, pub folk type stuff, but then it would also sound even a little bit country as well. My personal, like, I'm going to be 500 miles. Like, I almost, like, it's a great song, but I almost have to rule that out as my favorite one on there, just because I've probably heard it way too many times. My personal random favorite one was My Old Friends, the Blues, which was one that I really enjoyed off of this one. But like, there were just lots of them. I also like Cap in Hand. I thought Sunshine and Leith was beautiful as well, Keith. I don't know. It was just one of those albums that surprised me with its depth, especially lyrically. And I just, again, I would say to anyone listening to this, if all you've ever heard is 500 Miles, this is one of those perfect opportunities to really dive into the rest of the album, because it has so many layers to it. Les, I don't know if you had listened to much of the Proclaimers beyond 500 Miles yourself, or kind of what your thoughts were.
So the Proclaimers broke through with Letter from America. I think that was the year before Sunshine on Leith came out.
Oh, never heard it.
About 86, 87, maybe that. But the big thing about them was they sung in Scottish. So like you said before, Rob, accents sort of just disappear with most acts, but with the Proclaimers, they were fucking Scottish, and they were letting you know about it. It was like the country western element. It's like if Glenn Frey was from Firth and Forth. That's what you'd get. I think it's a magic country album. It's a really good country sounding album. Cap in Hand, when I was listening to that, the lyrics are brilliant. It's just like, a big like fuck you to the monarchy and whatever. Just like, you don't own our land. It's so powerful lyrically. I think one of my favorites was It's Saturday Night, though. It's just like it's such a funny song about just getting pissed on a Saturday night. It's like special. It's like if you're going on a big bender of a weekend, you got Friday night, Saturday morning by the Specials, and then it's Saturday night by the Proclaimers, and then suddenly you're at Sunday, full of fear, self-loathing, and regret. But yeah, just a belter of an album. I love it. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Keith, you're on mute if you're trying to talk, buddy. I just wanted to. You look like you're trying to say something there.
Muted myself. So the album ends on O Jean, which is. It doesn't sound like it when you're listening to it, but it's such a beautiful love song that it's like once you like really listen to the lyrics, you're like, oh shit, that's like really sort of powerful. But it's got that sort of country bluesy type sound, almost like a 50s sort of blues bar in the deep south in America type sound to it. And you don't really expect it, but then it's just this broad Edinburgh accent cutting across it.
Man, yeah, I again can't encourage you guys enough to listen to it, just because again it'll surprise you. I think that was the thing too, Keith. Like a couple of things, like the way in which, and I found this a lot in English rock music in that time, of stuff that would sound maybe happier, and then the lyrics themselves are way more serious or darker or political, you know, like things that would be a little subversive in that way. But also that, frankly, this album is not full of a bunch of same sounding songs. Like there are different tones and even some different styles just kind of throughout the entirety of the album that just, again, I keep saying layers, but that's what I keep coming back to. Okay. Anything else on Proclaimers before we move on? Okay. My number 4, now that we've gone from the relative happiness and joy, or at least joy and happiness of them, let me bring you guys down a little bit with Joy Division and Closer. Or is it Closer? Is it Closer or Closer? And it's one of those things that I don't know that I've ever gotten a great definitive answer to. A bit of a philosophical question as well, because it was Joy Division's second and final LP. It was posthumously released after the tragic suicide death of Ian Curtis. And look, this was hard for me because there was a big part of me that said, I want to pick a New Order album, because that version, you know, the post Joy Division version of iteration that was New Order, was just much more color and sunshine and so on and so forth. And I know that there will be people who listen to, well, frankly, either any Joy Division, and they will focus in on the kind of the darker tones of it. I mean, Ian Curtis, let's be real, was a pretty dark guy. Like he suffered from clinical depression, what was probably even before then not even diagnosed, but was probably bipolar disorder. He had epilepsy at a time when the treatments were not great, and the ones that there were just horrifying for you physically. Like he had a lot of torment and darkness in him, and that came out in the lyrics. But what I will say, though, is, and again, maybe this is one of those things where people think this is kind of a strange thing about bands, but they are not the first, nor were they the last band where you had a lead singer who sort of had his agenda about what he wanted to say, and a group of musicians who said, we'll do we're going to handle the music part of this, and you do this, and we'll find a way to sort of match it. Like the Strokes are even like that. There are a lot of bands that are more like that than you imagine, but Closer by Joy Division, on the one hand, is full of this kind of dark poetry, and it is hard to not to kind of separate his ultimate death from this album, because there are definitely sections of it that feel like him kind of saying exactly what he's about to do, that he can't keep going, and all of these things. But part of what makes it so effectual for me is how like raw and vulnerable that is. And also, and this is the part about the musicianship part, even if you're not, like, let's say you care nothing for the lyrics or the poetry of any of that stuff, the actual rock on this album is incredible. It sounds great. It is, along with Unknown Pleasures, 2 albums that, and again, this is, I'm not from Manchester. I don't want to claim, that I understand this fundamentally in a way that others, that in the same way that others who are from there do. But by all accounts, both of their albums very much carried the kind of the spirit of a very dark period in not only England, but in the Northwest and in Manchester in that period of time. The kind of urban sprawl of these cities that had kind of ripped the soul out of people, the filth, the dirt, the kind of the dirtiness of it. But look, the songs themselves are incredible. There's lots of bangers on here. If I had to pick one song, like it's hard for me, because I do find all of these songs to be really, really good. But for me personally, if I had to kind of pick one song, it's 24 Hours, just because of the way that the drums, like it's pounding, and you feel this intensity, like time is running out. Like you feel like this guy is running from himself, and that, the time is running out. But again, bit of a maudlin album. I knew it was probably one that would be a little divisive in this group, but it is still one of the great rock albums, and it's one of the most important post-punk albums ever made, and one of the most, one of the great rock albums of the 80s, despite all of the sort of baggage that came along with it. And again, last point I'll make is kind of go along with that idea of singles that don't make the album. Love Will Tear Us Apart is Joy Division's best, most commercially successful single, recorded around the same time as Closer. And yet, when you think about that, it would not have fit on this album. It would have just somehow not quite, even though it was depressing in its own weird way, it's more of a personal song, it wouldn't have really fit on this album. But again, find it funny that I'm sure there are a lot of people who buy this and they're like, well, where is Love Will Tear Us Apart? It's not on here. But anyway, thoughts on Joy Division Closer or Closer?
I scrolled the playlist looking for Love Will Tear Us Apart, like, oh, okay. Oh, okay then. Yeah. Album in its entirety, not for me.
Not for you.
Means to an End, banger. So good. Just right from, again, it was probably like me and Keith have listened to loads of this for a dog walk's point of view, but it's like it's an energy. Yeah, I like it. It's an energizer. It's good. Yeah. I'm kind of like, am I going to go for a run here? Don't be silly. But it made me feel like I probably could.
Yeah, these were the sort of the first hints of them being able to do kind of like danceable.
Yes, like more
depressing music.
Yeah.
You could see the seeds of New Order in it, but yeah. Keith, Les, thoughts on Joy Division Closer?
I think it's like I think it's like a hauntingly beautiful record. That again, like if you listen to it in the context of knowing obviously what happened with Ian Curtis, and then you sit and you take in the lyrics, it's
Keith froze. Like I can never tell if these are dramatic pauses or not.
No, we can hear you. Don't know what's going on there.
You're good now. Keith, you're good now, buddy.
Yeah, you're back, mate.
I do apologize. Yeah, it's one of those albums that like can bring you to the verge of tears, but it really shouldn't, because like the style of the album's a lot more sort of like you said, like rock dance, almost like touching on New Order style. It makes you want to get up, but also it brings you right back down when you look into the lyrics. If I had to pick a song from this for the playlist, it'd be Colony. I think Colony's it's just an incredible track. But yeah, magnificent guitar, like really sort of guttural guitar, like really earthy sound to it. I think it's a fantastic choice and well worthy of its place.
I think brilliantly we've all picked a different song, because mine's Decades. We've all picked a different song from this album. So Decades is the song that put me on this album. I've never liked Joy Division. Don't really like Unknown Pleasures. I've listened to it. I don't quite get it. I think maybe because it's hard not to compare them to New Order, and I like New Order, and I've always liked New Order, and I never quite got onto Joy Division because I never really liked Unknown Pleasures. That documentary I sent the link to on YouTube, Decades, a New Order documentary about them doing a show in Vienna, I think it was. It's a brilliant documentary. I went to watch that at the British Music Experience on the waterfront. And that put me onto Decades, then put me onto this album, and this is an incredible album. Like we say, it sort of straddles the two between Joy Division and New Order. And yeah, it is just a brilliant, brilliant album. And it's Decades for me. It's just such a good record. But like you say, everyone's choice there is worthy of the playlist. But yeah, so I would say to anyone, if you don't really like Joy Division, if you don't like Love Will Tear Us Apart, if you don't really like the first album, Unknown Pleasures, give this a go anyway, because it definitely does it for me.
Yeah, I will say the last thing I'll say on this before we move on is this is definitely, and this is probably true of Unknown Pleasures, but especially Closer, this is a winter album for me. You know, there is something about the early darkness that comes, and the way in which this kind of, it feels like a cloud that kind of grabs you a little bit. But at the same time, what is the reason that any of us, like when we're sad, why do we sometimes gravitate towards heartbreaking music? Like it's one of the great things about us that is a bit of a contradiction about humanity, right? there's something about listening to someone's dark vulnerability and him kind of at the end, especially if you do know the context and you know that for him that life was just very tough. But there is something about hearing it and really listening to those lyrics that, you know, you could take away from it. Oh God, what a depressing album. But the other thing you could take away from it is this, you know, this person is feeling something genuinely, and you know, hearing this and connecting to it makes me actually feel like, A, maybe things aren't so bad for me, and B, you know, that sometimes in kind of consuming the darkness, you get more in touch with your lightness, if that makes sense. I don't know if that resonates for anyone else, but again, I understand the stereotypes about Joy Division and you know, and because of the lyrical nature of it. But again, I think that if you like drums and guitar and beats, you're actually going to be pleasantly surprised by how much you like this album. So, all right, guys, we are on to number 3. We are getting there. Les, you are up, my friend.
Okay, so I had to do a local album at some point because there was a lot of really good Liverpool bands in the 80s, and I think I've gone for one that's maybe been a little bit forgotten. So another honourable mention, by the way, Half Man Half Biscuit back in the DHSS. I couldn't let this pass without mentioning Half Man Half Biscuit. Rob, I would love you to listen to that.
Okay.
I would love to know your thoughts because
what's the name of the band?
Half Man Half Biscuit. They're from Birkenhead. They're incredible.
There's so many good Merseyside bands. That is one of the worst names of a band I've ever heard, but I will give it a shot.
The fact you never believe me when I say to you, oh yeah, you know, such and such in Notty Ash, you're like, that's not a real place. I'm like, yeah, come up with bands called Half Man Half Biscuit. It makes no sense.
Love
it. All right, go ahead, Les.
Yeah, so my album anyway is The Christians by The Christians from 1987. I got this at Christmas 1987, which was one of my best Christmases ever. I was 10 years old, and you're sort of straddling that bit where you're getting into clothes, but you still like toys. So I got an Action Force. Rob, that would have been G.I. Joe over there.
Ooh,
tank,
yeah.
Like battery-powered tank that moved and you could put figures in. And a Jade Green Adidas trackie and an Everton trackie and this album.
You were so spoiled.
I was a child, wasn't I, Kate? You know, so.
Gosh, what a charmed life Les leads.
Yeah, so I got this on tape, and this, when I said before about like the lyrics just coming back to you, I listened to what song was it? Sorry, one sec. When the Fingers Point.
Yes.
Which was track 2 on the album. And I didn't realise I knew every single word to it because I must have absolutely hammered this as a kid. Gary Christian's vocals are incredible. I think they're still touring. The Christians, I think they're still doing the sort of the 80s circuit, aren't they?
Yeah, and have they done a few bits like on the waterfront rather in Liverpool as well? As I think it's just been celebrations as such. You know, there'll be.
I would really like to see them because the album it's really quite soulful. It's not as polished as like the ones we've been to at Level 42 before. Not as polished as that. Very soulful, but the lyrics of like Forgotten Town and Hooverville, it's very it's a comment on the area at the time. Which was very run down, like you said, Rob, about Manchester being like a bit of a grim industrial city. Early mid-80s, Liverpool, Birkenhead everywhere was really, really run down. Unemployment was like a massive, massive problem. The lyrics in this kind of touch on that as well and speak to that, but in a very, like you say, when the lyrics kind of don't sort of fit with the song, the melody necessarily, it's kind of like that with this. I just think it's a bit of a forgotten album from a bit of a forgotten band, I think, from the 80s. But yeah,
it doesn't help that it's not on streaming over here.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it, as well? Yeah. So just for context, Rob made a playlist of every album that we've listened to, so we've all listened to it in prep, and he couldn't put the Christians on. I only realised last night that it wasn't on there. I was like, oh my God, where's that gone? But yeah, so you can't stream it over there, which is a shame. Did you get to listen to it on YouTube?
So that's the thing. I couldn't even find the album on YouTube. I don't know what is going on with the rights or the trademarks or what's going on with the publishing or who they're in dispute with. But yeah, it's unavailable. So I will have no opinions on the Christians, but I will find a way to listen to them at some point. We have to go old school, Les, and you send me like a zip file of MP3s or something like that.
We'll LimeWire it. I'll get it to you somehow.
LimeWire.
Yeah, I think my tough on this.
Is it sort of Blue Eyed? Les, is it sort of a soul album? Like what? How would you describe genre-wise what the Christians sound like?
I don't know. It's quite tricky. It is quite soulful, but I think that's because Gary Christian's got a really like soul style voice.
Yeah, beautiful.
But yeah, it's a very 80s album. Really, it's still got that sort of pop sensibilities of like 1987.
Okay,
it's quite soulful in its delivery. It's quite hard to pin down. It's one of those again where it's not really. It doesn't fit into any sort of category. It's not weird like the Smiths, anything like that. It's just I don't know. Yeah, Born Again is a belter. Ideal World was a Christmas song, I think, in 1987. That is such a lovely song, but I think it's going to have to be Hooverville is the one that I choose. And that's very much about being betrayed by politicians and seeing the area where you live run down and joblessness and everything. It's quite bleak in that respect. And it's sort of like the politicians promise that, yeah, things will get better, and they just don't. But I mean, it's just a great song as well. Lyrics aside, it's just a brilliant song. So, anyone got any thoughts on that album?
I thought the artwork for this was absolutely stunning as well. It's another one. Do you know, if I go like vinyl flicking or whatever,
yeah,
instantly it's purely black and white. Just the band themselves there's just something. Again, because it was so visual as kids in the 80s, seeing these covers, the Christians, just because we didn't live in Liverpool at the time and my mum's Scouse, that had to be bought. We had to have that on vinyl and it would be played on loop. And like Ideal World is just, it's interesting, isn't it? I suppose how you can emulate what's going on in like a northern gritty album like that, but it sounds so good.
Yeah, amazing.
His voice again with kind of like Fine Young Cannibals and whatnot for me, around that time, it's got that, not necessarily, same in terms of like track listing or whatnot, but it all falls into that kind of category for me. It's fantastic and it's timeless. It sounds as good when you hear it now or when they perform live as what it was then on vinyl. Beautiful, great choice.
Keith, did you have any thoughts on the Christians before we move forward?
Yeah, it's another one that, like, until we started this process, they were not across my radar whatsoever. But it's a great album. It's a great listen. Again, it's gritty, it's soulful, it's got a lovely sort of melodic sound to it. And as per like a lot of the things we've talked about so far, and I know like certainly from mine coming up, it's a very class conscious album, a very sort of political statement album. A lot of UK music in the 80s, certainly the stuff that like you look back at now and think has stood the test of time, is the sort of social commentary on life under Thatcherism, which gives a really good view of how hard life was for the working class throughout the whole decade. It's like music is this sort of medium of expression where people can vent their frustrations to a wide audience. And I think this album's a perfect example of it.
Very nice. I'm looking forward to listening to this. I even went to the record store yesterday trying to find a copy of it. Of course, finding a copy of it over here is probably going to be next to impossible, but we will find a way to listen to it. But no, great. And Hooverville is your selection?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Kate, number 3.
Oh, this could have been top for me. This could have been my top spot. I hope my dad gets to listen to this. This is so special for me. Communards by the Communards, imaginatively titled. It's such a banger of an album. I listened to So Cold Night while I was out walking the dog, not yesterday, the day before, right? Early, it was pitch black and whatnot, and I just thought, is this being sampled as a Scouse House track? Because if it hasn't, they are absolutely missing a trick. It's got proper, like probably mid-90s, I reckon, vibes where you're just, this would make an epic dance track this. So again, if anybody's listening to this and that has actually happened and it's probably been at like the Sunrise or the 051 or something back in the day and I completely missed it, please clue me in. This is a very special album to me, again, because it was in the tape deck. We've had it in probably every form, I reckon, as a family over the years, but more so because of the kind of juxtaposition of being called to the dance floor in 2004 for the first dance at my wedding with my dad to Don't Leave Me This Way. Never mind the new husband, right? I promised him I'd get him on the dance floor, my dad. And he was like, yeah, no. And I knew how much he loved this track. And it took us both back to quite literally pissing ourselves laughing, because on that bit where it builds and he shouts, baby, and we get it wrong every single time. It's like, we've listened to it thousands of times over like 3 decades now. How do we still get this wrong? And lo and behold, on that night, we also got it wrong, and everyone was like, "What are these pair of dickheads doing?" Frankly, and it was so lovely, and we were dead happy, and that's what the album encompasses for me. I also think it was the first time that I'd listened to an album where the track listings were so different, but still followed like a subtle theme. So I found it just really interesting at the time, and I love listening to it now. And again, after all this time, I can pick up on something and just think that's definitely the beginning of a house track. That I wonder if it's been sampled. If not, it should be. So it is "Don't Leave Me This Way" by the Communards.
All right, nice, gentlemen. Thoughts on the Communards?
If that wasn't your playlist song, I was going to kick off. There was going to be absolute murder. It's an anthem. It's a banger. It's just a great song, isn't it? And it's one of those songs that I think, like, whenever it's all, you only ever hear it in like a social setting, and whenever you hear it, everyone goes, "Oh yes!"
The dance to the dance floor.
It's
like and it's cat's ready.
And it's a cover, but it's I kind of feel like it's very close. It very much rivals the original. Like occasionally there are covers that become the definitive version just because they do. And you know, looking back on this one, this hit #1 in the UK, and so for a lot of people, I imagine it is probably the definitive one. I just thought this was an album full of just dance bangers. I just had a lot of fun listening to it. "You Are My World" and "Heavens Above" are another couple tracks that I really enjoyed on this album. But yeah, no, that first one was great. It was so weird how like it started with this dance banger, and then it would get into these more like, you know, kind of melodic, almost like crooner type songs, and then we're dancing again, and then we're gonna take it down low, we're gonna take it down slow, and then like I felt like I was at a middle school dance at times where we're dancing, and then it's like, all right, it's time for the slow dance. But no, I really dug it. I'd never heard of Communards before. This is another one of those albums. Never heard of it before this exercise, and ended up really loving it.
Yay! I'm taking that as a win.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for me as well, Jimmy Somerville is just an incredible singer. Just
right?
got an incredible voice. If you go back to Bronski Beat,
yes,
like, that's another. I'm doing these shout outs. Bronski Beat, The Age of Consent, that nearly made it for me as well, because that is an absolutely brilliant album. But to go from that transition to the Communards, "Don't Leave Me This Way," it was just it's one of those sort of generational tunes, isn't it? From like it does take you back to whatever time of your life that was. But yeah, I think for me as well, "You Are My World" is just because that was another one that I'd forgotten that I knew, and then it came on. It was like, there we go, love it. And the album artwork, by the way, is incredible. If anyone's watching on YouTube, it's the one bang in the middle of all of us there. It's very Soviet themed, which I'm here for. A brilliant album.
Oh yay! I'm faring so much better on this podcast, which also proves I was 30 in the last one, and I'm in my 40s now, so it all does get better with age.
3 charting singles on this album, as we said. "Don't Leave Me This Way" hit #1. "So Cold the Night" hit number 8.
Yes, banger as well.
And then Disenchanted hit number 29. Don't Leave Me This Way did chart in at number 40 in the US. So, and again, that's just a song that it's just such a classic song. I love the original, but I loved this version of it as well. Okay, any more thoughts on this before we move to Keith's and your number 3?
Oh, good.
All right, Keith Tomlin, your number 3, my man.
Number 3. It's my second separate the art from the artist.
Here we go.
It's only one of them. And it's only recent that we've had to separate the art from the artist.
Already know who it's going to be. Just
we're going to fight over this, Keith. We're going to fight.
It's second Spike Island. It's the eponymous The Stone Roses by the Stone Roses from 1989. It's a magnificent record. It's so good. It's basically
perfect, Keith. I think it might be a perfect album, by the way.
I don't think there's a single track on it that you can say is below like an 8 out of 10. It's just such a good album. And for me, so obviously from the last pod, if you can remember 5 years ago, sure, my list was very sort of indie / Britpop heavy.
Mm-hmm.
The Stone Roses were the precursor to the Britpop movement.
Right.
And if they hadn't released this album, chances are you would never have had bands like Blur, Oasis, The Verve, who all sort of take their style largely from this album and what was released on this album. It was obviously, it's come towards the end of the decade. It's a complete departure from everything anyone had ever heard in the 80s. It's like the ushering in of a new era completely. And it's just absolutely magnificent. Just briefly touching on like what Les said there on the Communard. Again, you got the Jackson Pollock style background, and then you've got the iconic Stone Roses Lemons. And again, as part of the research for this, I found out that the Lemons are on there as a result of a conversation with a 65-year-old Frenchman who told Ian Brown that lemons counteract, if biting on a lemon counteracts the effect of CS gas. So if you ever find yourself in a riot, carry a lemon, and this man carried a lemon with him everywhere, which is the most French thing I've ever heard, because they expect to be in a riot at any fucking given stage. Like the slightest inconvenience. Exactly, the slightest inconvenience, and they will be burning down municipal buildings.
Legends.
And then we talk about the tracks. Like it opens on "I Want to Be Adored," which is just anthemic. It's a festival song. The whole crowd will sing along with that song. It's beautiful. It's the album as a whole for me sounds like the sort of thing that a group of mates would come up with over a weekend, kicking about in the garage of one of their parents' houses, and they'd all just have little ideas and they throw it in, and there it goes. And again, like we said before, there's the sort of protest movement type feel about it with Elizabeth, My Dear, which is a not so subtle shot at the monarchy. And I think the album finishes on possibly the best 3-track stretch you could finish an album on, where you've got This Is the One, I Am the Resurrection, and Fool's Gold. It's like as a 3-track sort of leading in, this is how we're gonna knock this on the head. Majestic, absolutely fucking brilliant.
Fool's Gold was one of those tracks that didn't
the-
make the album
it's
originally.
it's my playlist song for this.
Which one, Keith?
just-
Which one, Keith?
I Am the Resurrection.
I Am the Resurrection. Yeah, not a bad
It's
choice.
it's the best song on the album for me. It's just so good, just so very good. And this album is essentially the reason for my musical taste, even though I didn't hear this probably until a long time after the albums that I did get into.
Yeah, I was late to this one too. So I came to this album after the Second Coming, I think. So I kind of like got into the Stone Roses by the Second Coming, then listened to this album. Fool's Gold wasn't on the original album. It was one of those ones that was released between basically when they done that first album and should have done the second album had they not waited 5 years to record the frigging thing. And that the big regret, or the most regretful thing about that track is that would have taken them on a totally different course. They were doing like dance indie with Fool's Gold, and if you listen to the best of again, but the best of the Stone Roses, it's got like B-sides on there as well. So you've got like Something's Burning. There's another couple other ones. It's got that real dancey sort of hook that Fool's Gold's got. That was the direction they were going in. But they basically all had a bit of a meltdown and retreated to Wales for 5 years in Monmouth trying to record the album. Took forever. The end result was the Second Coming, which is a great album on its own. Complete departure from this, but just regretful that we didn't carry on with that sort of dance indie style. I think like it was very unexpected, the sound of this to me. The first time I heard there's a lot of 60s influence, like 60s psychedelia, which, like Keith said, wasn't like anything about at the time that no one was doing. I don't think 60s psychedelia. Obviously, the dance scene in Manchester probably helped with all that. And then obviously for Elizabeth My Dear, it's Simon Garfunkel sample basically, isn't it? Some tune in the background, Simon Garfunkel, thingy Scarborough Fair. Yeah, I mean, it is an absolutely impeccable album from start to finish. It's just incredible, and you've got to listen to the whole thing through.
Yeah,
you've got to listen to the whole of I Am the Resurrection. Don't stop when it cuts out. Keep going. It's gone. It's one of the best ever.
Kate.
I mean, it's fantastic. I was introduced to this way after the time by a husband's mate who was obsessed. It was on constantly. Every time he came to the house, it was in the car and started to pick up on it. It is absolutely beautiful. And just to throw the most tenuous link of all time, the beginning of I Am the Resurrection does sound a little bit like Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison.
It always comes back to Pretty Woman. I love it.
Super tenuous. It's beautiful, Keith. Take your hat off to you. Brilliant choice.
Yeah, Keith, you mentioned the last three tracks. I mean, again, I know this has been a recurring theme, but this is one of those albums that may have the first three tracks of this album, same way with Dire Straits, Kate, where they're just old. They're not just classics. They're like ultra classics of that entire genre. I Want to Be Adored, She Bangs the Drums, and Waterfall. And the way that like Waterfall and then even like Don't Stop kind of almost has echoes of Waterfall still in it. Like there's very much an intentional, way in which all the music is really knit together in this album that is so incredible. And I'm definitely one of those who came to this late. I remember I'd heard of the Stone Roses. I remember watching a documentary a few years back about just kind of a doc about Britpop or whatever. And of course it starts, with Stone Roses at Isle of Wight and like, all of the kind of the buzz that essentially it created. And, Les, like you mentioned before, they wait 5 years till the next album. It's hard when you wait that long to kind of keep that momentum going that they had. And of course there's a million reasons for that. The band was, like a lot of brilliant bands who have brilliant iconic debuts, they were probably on the verge of imploding from the beginning on some level. But no, I've found this to be an album that has just grown on me. I definitely picked up on the 60s psychedelia aspect to it. Keith, you said that it had not really sounded like anything. Now, obviously, there's the influences, but not around that time. There's nothing that really sounded like Stone Roses, which I generally agree with. I think one album. If I could give you guys a random recommendation of an album that I think it came out in 88 or 89 was a band called Galaxy 500. And it was called On Fire. And there is definitely a Stone Rose, like you can kind of aesthetically and texturally, texture wise, like there's definitely a vibe of that in there as well that I think you guys would enjoy. But no, Stone Roses, incredible. It's one of those albums whose stature has clearly grown, well beyond what it even was at the time. And when you have those kind of casual discussions about Britpop, I mean, Britpop is as inaccurate a term as like grunge is. Like grunge doesn't really mean anything, but yet we sort of associate it with things. Britpop, like, really doesn't mean anything, but we've associated any English group from that time period to that. But the Stone Roses, to me, as much as they influenced some of those other bands, no one really ever sounded quite like this album to me. I mean, I think the Verve you mentioned, Keith, like A Storm in Heaven is the Verve's first album. There's definitely elements of that psychedelia that they definitely were influenced by Stone Roses on a little bit, as far as I can tell. But no, an absolute peak classic. Outstanding. Okay, anything else on Stone Roses before we move forward?
Quick one from me. Don't Stop Us Waterfall played backwards.
That's why. Okay, so I was wondering, what is it that I'm hearing? I swear to God, I thought I had something in my brain, and I'm like, it's like they're sampling Waterfall, and I'm hearing it in the layers. That's incredible.
Just play backwards. But this album, it's the only one really where Ian Brown and John Squire worked properly collaboratively, because I think they fell out and they ended up hating each other in the end. And you can tell that the two of them are at the absolute peak there. And I think with the band, ironically, apart from Ian Brown, who couldn't sing for shit but was a great front man, every one of them was brilliant at what they do. Rennie was a brilliant drummer, Manny was a brilliant bassist, John Squire was a brilliant guitarist, and Ian Brown was a brilliant front man with a shit voice. But it works, and it's probably 10 on 10, 11 on 10. Yeah,
you've done well to even just pick a track off that as your favorite one, to be fair. It was brilliant.
Also, can I just say, great, the tracks themselves have incredible titles. Like, let's be real, I Am the Resurrection is so baller of a name of a song. It's very like biblical and yet full of ego, and it's great. It's outstanding. Okay, my number 3, guys. I would say, in the same way, Keith, that you talked about an album that was very formative for you in terms of everything that came next, and it really mattered to you. I feel like it's going to sound like I'm overstating this, and I guarantee I'm going to get some laughs from people for what I'm about to say, but I'm not kidding. 8-year-old Rob Vera, sitting in his little bedroom as a kid, fell in love with rock music because of Def Leppard Hysteria. And I am not kidding. I loved this album, knew every word, every note. It is one of those albums that, depending on your point of view, was either symbolic or indicative of, 80s album. Like Kate, you mentioned before how good, this album, it just sounded so good. It was really well made. Like in the 80s, we're still in that kind of Pro Tools digital area where, you're still doing tape, and you're still doing multiple takes. And that is particularly pertinent because there was a 4-year gap between Pyromania, which is also an incredible Def Leppard album, and Hysteria. And it was 4 years because the executive producer on this album, one Robert Mutt Lang, kept them recording this, and it's like a Stanley Kubrick film where he's making the actors do the same take of walking through a door 80 times. Apparently, this was at times a very painful experience. Of course, you cannot rip it from the context of the band's the band's drummer Rick Allen getting in a tragic car accident and losing his arm in the middle of these sessions, and them having to kind of overhaul completely his entire percussion setup. They originally thought he's just going to leave the band. He's like, I'm not leaving the band. I want to figure this out. And basically they found a way like to create this sort of, cosmic drum sound that really you can't separate it from the rest of the album in a lot of ways. But talk about an absolute, now again, this is probably one of those where this was definitely an album that, hit well in Britain, in the UK, but in the US, this thing was an absolute juggernaut. Number one on the UK albums charts, number one in the US Billboard 200 at one point. The song that everyone probably knows best from this album is Pour Some Sugar on Me. And yet the actual only number one hit in America off of this was Love Bites, which was also a song I was equally weirdly obsessed with. Like Def Leppard had this trick where they could make these, like, think about earnest rock think about the genre of emo, for instance, or something like that came about in the late 90s, early 2000s. Def Leppard were like trying to find a way to straddle, like, we're going to do hard rock, but we're also going to do pop, and we're also going to do these like earnest love songs. And then we're also going to do these like geopolitical songs about, the Western and Eastern powers against each other. Like, and just like, it was so ambitious and so over the top. And yet I'm telling you, side one of this album, guys, Women, Rocket, Animal, Love Bites, Pour Some Sugar on Me, and Armageddon It, all of them radio hits, all of them music video hits, like just absolutely great. And even side two, Gods of War, Don't Shoot Shotgun. And then to me, the underrated track on this entire album is the title track, Hysteria, which is a beautiful, beautiful song with the way the guitars were on this album, Joe Elliott's vocals. The pride of Sheffield before Arctic Monkeys was Def Leppard, and I will not hear any slander towards Def Leppard. Having said that, I get that this is very particular for me, and I understand that this may not translate as well to an English audience, but of all the albums I picked, this is the one I was most fascinated by in terms of hearing the collective feedback of the group, because I can understand why Def Leppard could be somewhat divisive, but I genuinely love this album, love this band. Guys, what did we think of Hysteria by Def Leppard?
I think it's an immaculate choice. It's quintessential glam rock, isn't it? It's got everything you want from a glam rock album. A
lot of Bowie influence on this too, by the way, Keith.
Sorry?
A lot of David Bowie influence or
Yes.
little allusions in this album. They love David Bowie.
Yeah, very much so. I think that you touched on Pour Some Sugar on Me there. That is the rock and roll version of This Is a Song that makes it onto a sex playlist. Which it sounds like the idea sounds completely wrong, but it's just you listen to the song and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. This is a song about shagging. It's an absolutely fucking tremendous album. Def Leppard as a band, huge fan, like very, very much into that style. I think this is an absolutely great choice, and like for me, this is probably their best work.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's their biggest album. Pyromania. A lot of people love Pyromania, and I love it too. It's a great album, but I don't know that. I think this is their opus.
Yeah, 100%. For me, Def Leppard is Hysteria. Like the very. It's almost like a greatest hits album without being a greatest hits album. It's like the best of their songs. They've just gone bump, 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 bump all the way down, and it's untouchable.
Well, now we know why Les loves it. Go.
Hey, Les loves the greatest hits.
Yeah.
Do you know what I love about it? This is everything I want from my hair rock albums. So like you said, Keith, Pour Some Sugar on Me. I'm hot, sticky, and sweet from my head
Through my feet.
That is some lyric. And then woman, lots of pretty women in brackets, men. They can't live without them. Skin on skin. Let the love begin. Women. I mean, these are hair rock lyrics. That is exactly what you want.
These are shagging tunes, aren't they? Oh my god!
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Horny bastards.
They were.
And rhythm. If you can keep that up, you're doing well. Especially at our age. Yeah, I think in terms of I think Sheffield. I don't think that they never seem to be. That never seem to be spoken about in terms of being a Sheffield band, really, do they? You get Heaven 17, you get Thingy. Oh, the ones who split before Heaven 17. It was gone. The name's gone. I'll come back to it. Arctic Monkeys, Pulp. You always get those bands from Sheffield, and they're never really spoken about in the same scene because they're very, very different to everything else. But yeah, it's a cracking album. It's quite silly, really, isn't it? It's just a proper rock, in your face, like you said before, balls to the wall album. And Animal for me is just I think that was the track that got the mainstream attention here. Certainly,
yeah,
when it was released. That's the one I remember as a kid, and then the other tracks came out after that, I think.
Animal was their highest charting single from that album in the UK.
Yeah, so
which surprised, Animal was a pretty big hit here, but it surprised me to find that out. I figured it would have been. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know how anyone escaped. Pour Some Sugar on Me was like Godzilla tearing through Tokyo in 1987 on MTV. It's hard to overstate how big a deal, and again, one of the best sing-along songs that you're absolutely getting all the words wrong to while you're singing it is Pour Some Sugar on Me. And I certainly did. Who knows what lyrics I made up as a kid. Oh, no, absolutely. Kate?
Yeah, absolutely nothing to add other than I absolutely love it. And just something very quickly that you have just touched on in your intro just there is how important music videos started to become around this time, right? So, and all of a sudden the visual wasn't just the album cases. All of a sudden, everything from the MTV generation. It was the box for me. I used to watch the box a lot in the 90s, especially late 90s. By way of an honourable mention that absolutely is not a UK band or artist, but at the same time, Christmas Number 1 in 1987 was a Jackie Wilson reboot of Reet Petite.
Oh God, yeah.
Wasn't it? I remember seeing this because it was on Arena on BBC Two, right? I remember seeing this like it was yesterday, and it was a claymation, so almost like kind of Wallace and Gromit, Aardman type of thing of Jackie Wilson singing Reet Petite, but the claymation would roll his head down his arms and then back up again. There were kids with whiplash Christmas 1987 because we were all trying to do it. But around this time, that's when, the whole kind of MTV, everything had to have a music video and that kind of pop culture around it, was what we were talking about in school. Yeah. And, we weren't talking about album covers in tape cassettes where we were talking about actually seeing it on the, on the bigger screen. So, yeah, it's it. Also, where the hell did they get Def Leppard from? From Sheffield? Cooler than Sheffield.
I always felt like it was a bit of a tribute to Led Zeppelin in a way because of the kind of way it's spelled out, and I don't know. I probably should research that a little bit more. But the last thing I'll say is that I think one of the things about music now is that doesn't necessarily allow us to be as connected to it as maybe it was when we were younger is the quantity. Having an entire, Western civilization's worth of music on your phone is great, but it also in weird ways can devalue some of your connection to it. When I was a kid at 8 years old, my mom gave me her old, turntable set up for my room. I had 3 albums: Def Leppard Hysteria, NXS Kick, and the soundtrack to American Graffiti, which, if you guys are familiar with American Graffiti, it was one of George Lucas's very first films, a lot of big stars that became big stars later, but the soundtrack was essentially an encyclopedia of American rock from the 50s, late 50s, early 60s. It's an incredible, so for me, that was forming my attachment to music. And there was something about these guys being able to they rocked and yet it was not so dangerous yet for an 8-year-old me. It was still like, yeah, they rock, but they're also like in love, and they have a lot of heartache, and they're also worried about the world blowing up, and it was just everything, and so again, these connections that we have personally to our music is what makes this ultimately special. All right, guys, we are into the home stretch here. I cannot believe, look at this podcast, guys. We're down to our final twos. And again, we may break this into multiple parts, but yeah.
It's very Tarantino-esque, this, isn't it? We're adding a lot of extra scenes here compared to the last one, which ran at a cool 1 minute 58.
Oh God. Well, it's whatever.
This has all the hallmarks of a Matt Jones two-parter.
Oh, he's gonna. Yeah, no. Yeah, we'll probably divide this into two. Les, I may preemptively have you divide this into two, just so that so that Matt doesn't try to kill us all. But
just put it all out there.
Yeah, no one's gonna care. People our age have an attention span, so we'll be all right. I think so.
I've come out of retirement for this. We're playing the lot. Beginning to end.
That's right.
We're going till it's done.
Sit down.
All right, we're down to our final two. Les, you're number two.
I am keeping us in 1987, and it's a Scottish band. Well, yeah, Scottish band, Scottish singer-songwriter, really, with a band, because I think it's Aztec Camera. Love, by the way, the album. I think Aztec Camera were basically Roddy Frame, with various different musicians throughout. But this, obviously, the big song from this is Somewhere in My Heart, which everybody knows, but that was a massive, massive hit. But when you listen to the whole album, it's just, there's so many, just like, again, beautiful songs, beautiful lyrics. And this was actually the first gig I ever went to, was at the Camera in 1993 at the Royal Court. So it's a band that's got like a special place in my heart, really. And I just think this is one of those, again, like we spoke about before, where they were very much a new wave band. Aztec Camera with High Wind, Hard Rain, whatever it's called, the first album. They were very much of that sort of postcard music.
Highland Hard Rain, yeah.
Highland Hard Rain, that's the one, yeah. They were very much of that sort of new wave Scottish band, postcard records, that kind of thing. And then this one is just unashamedly poppy, really, in large parts. I think tough to pick one from this. Kill 'Em on Street is one of those songs like Sunshine on Leith, Keach, where if you've got a little Scotch whiskey and have a little cry while you listen to it, it's perfect for that. It's incredible. Somewhere on My Heart, obviously, brilliant pop song, but I think we're going to go with How Men Are. Purely for that lyric. Sometimes when we're just getting by and getting along, it's like we're scared to see that something is wrong. It's just like proper hits you when you hear that lyric. So for anyone who's been in any relationship ever, you generally will hit that point at some point where things aren't quite right, but you don't want to talk about it in case it makes things a little bit worse. And I just think that whole record is just absolutely stunning. And this album, I cannot recommend it enough. It's optimistic, it's sad, it's got a bit of everything, and it's Scottish as well, which always makes things better, doesn't it?
I mean, there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said for getting a bit of Scottish in there. Makes things better.
Kate, any thoughts on Aztec Camera?
Oh, I thought you were going to say what Keith had just said. That's handy. This is absolutely quintessential 80s, this, isn't it? Just the first few seconds of each track, 80s. Also, Paradise has got the makings of a Gloria Estefan banger as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. which is always a good thing. I mean, Somewhere in My Heart is also timeless, I think. I play an awful lot. This is not a plug, obviously. Play an awful lot of Heart 80s just during the day. We'll just stick it on, and when it comes around on rotation, it's another one of those where you just seem to think the lyrics. It's there enough, but it's actually got quite a lot of depth considering, and anything that leans towards being Scottish. And Gloria Estefan mashup is good in my book.
In reading up on this one, Les, it sounded like at the time, he remind the lead singer's name,
Roddy Frame.
Roddy Frame. Roddy Frame got a lot of shit for this because it was to, in a lot of people's estimation, especially those who'd liked the earlier albums, that this was clearly a pivot towards trying to get, more mainstream or on, more radio friendly, whatever. And and maybe it's because I love some of their earlier stuff, played it on my show before or whatever, but I don't know, man. I dug it. I from track one, I liked Deep and Wide and Tall. The first track, I thought it was great. Yeah. Somewhere in My Heart, obviously. Working in a Gold Mine is great. Like, I like, and this is something maybe as I've aged, as I've begun to appreciate some of that better produced, but like more emotionally vulnerable and available type sound. Again, I've said this term before, but I think this has some touches of sophistopop to it, the kind of high gloss pop to it. But again, I also think that there's an elevation in the lyrics and the songwriting that comes along with some of that as well. Again, it just sounds great. It was just one of those that really, really sounds great. So excellent pick. I think if I had to, Somewhere in My Heart's hard to get past, but How Men Are is a great pick for your track list. I definitely agree on that.
Somewhere in My Heart, I am absolutely devastated that when Marco Silva was Everton manager, we never got a Marco Silva song, Somewhere in My Heart, to the Silver Splits the Blue line, because it would have been perfect. Little pointless pop trivia point on this, on the track Killamont Street. Killamont Street in Glasgow was where Strathclyde Police headquarters were, and it was sort of a painted dig at the established police at the time. So
right, I'm going to listen to that differently next time then. It's so good though. It's such a good.
It's a bang. Do you know what? Like,
lament, isn't it? I think.
What a choice! What a choice of an album.
Somewhere in My Heart was the highest charting song on the album, hit number 3 in the UK. But then 3 other singles: Working in a Gold Mine, How Men Are, and Deep and Wide and Tall. Those are your 4 singles off that album. So again, another band that didn't really chart over here, didn't really kind of make an impact over here. One of those bands I definitely discovered later, but again, to me, Aztec Camera are one of those bands that to me is, Kate, to your point, like, if you're looking for that 80s sound, and as you get older, I think one of the things you realize is that whatever you do when maybe you're not gravitating towards quote new music as much, just because something was made in the 80s or not, like that it's amazing how new it feels to you when you have not spent time with these albums, right? And then suddenly you're like, wow, this actually is just incredible. And then you can go down some rabbit holes. But Aztec Camera has a really actually very strong discography. Highly recommend. All right, anything else on Aztec Camera before we move forward?
Just a wicked band name. What a brilliant name.
Yeah, I always wondered that was one thing I meant to bring up. Where the hell does Aztec Camera come from? That is just 2 words pulled out of a hat and put together, and it's like Stone Temple Pilots. Aztec Camera.
Superb.
What was that?
Super.
I think, but without doing the necessary research into it, I think it might be a touch on the Camera Obscura in Edinburgh, which is like an ancient sort of mystical symbol type thing. I'm going to look it up now while we do the next album. I'm going to look into it. I'm pretty sure.
Camera Obscura, isn't it?
It's touched on that.
That's another excellent Scottish band, by the way. Camera Obscura. Yeah. Love them.
Brilliant.
Okay, Kate, number 2.
Number 2 for me is New Flame by Simply Red.
Oh boy, here we go.
Listen, I feel like I've got to address the fact that, look, I think the general consensus is he's a bit of an arsehole, right? He's said some derogatory stuff about people from Liverpool. He went out with Martine McCutcheon, which is dead random, isn't it? But also, my God, can he sing?
Yeah, he can really sing. It's annoying how well he can sing, even though he's,
This is far from my favorite Simply Red album of all time, which would probably be Stars, I reckon. But to fit the I mean, we're right up in, I think we're in 89. We are in 89 with this one. Yeah, he's just, he's there with some, in my head, Simply Red, some kind of mix of, again, Fine Young Cannibals, UB40. Do you know what I mean? There's like a weird, like, kind of undercurrent. Sometimes it almost leans towards like a little bit of a reggae kind of sound, and and sometimes it's just full on commercial pop, later on into the 90s, that type of thing. The track from this album is "You've Got It," because it is sexy as fuck, quite frankly. That I can't put any more fine of a point on it. It never gets old. I murder it every time I sing it. It usually makes the dog bark. I just think it's so simple, but just beautiful. I just think it's really, really impactful. Both my mum and dad were huge and are huge Simply Red fans. So I've brought up like through the ages with all of these tracks, again singing stuff that was probably highly inappropriate at a very young age. But mine have sang S&M by Rihanna. Here we are. Every generation has got its track as well. It's like hugely popular pop track that we're like, you were not singing that at a school disco at like 9, but we all did. So yeah, I quite like that as like getting into the rebellious teenager years and stuff, that there was something like old school that was a little bit touch and go, because some of the tracks in like some of the albums can get a little bit more raunchy. But You've Got It. And again, they're all in a George Michael kind of way. Nobody's probably ever made that connection before, but quite open about like relationships and stuff, and the fact that it's shit and it's hard sometimes, and and it's challenging and all of these things. But I just think he does it in a really beautifully melodic way. I absolutely love that track. So got it.
The thing I will add about this album is that the only thing I knew from it, and I bet you can guess which song I knew from it, if the cover of "If You Don't Know Me By Now,"
know me by now.
That song was,
we've got power fists.
You could not escape that song. And I'll be honest, Kate, like I did not know it was a cover until much later. I always assumed, I just thought that was the song. I'd never heard, as a kid, I'd never heard it, but it was definitely on mom's radio in the station wagon as a kid. Yeah. My personal favorite on this album, and this is just mine, was Turn It Up. I liked Turn It Up. I thought it was a bit of a bop. It's kind of even for a message song, because there's definitely a little bit of social, and that's, again, the thing is, these sophisti-pop albums are these like kind of elevated, like glossy pop albums where they randomly they'll go from like love, and then political and like class warfare and stuff. Like, where is this coming from? Or easing suffering. It just came out of nowhere. But like, I don't really like message songs so much unless they're a bop, and this was a bop, so I was into it. But yeah, If You Don't Know Me By Now, I have mixed feelings about. I also really liked A New Flame. I thought that's a really good song on there too.
A New Flame could, in a time ago, right, could have been a Bond track, I think. It's got the dun, dun, dun. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's quite like dramatic, not necessarily the lyrics or any of the rest of it, but the musicality of it. It's got that kind of drama. I do quite like that. I think that switches it up a bit on the album as well, if you listen to it in its entirety.
Yeah. Well, all I'll say about the main thing that I knew about or know about Simply Red is Turning Back the Years, which is still one of my favorite songs of that.
Holding Back the Years.
Holding Back the Years. Yeah, no, really, really good. So, all right, Keith, Les, any thoughts on Simply Red?
My only input on Mick Hucknall as a person is it comes from a personal story. So 2022, so we're talking 3 years ago now, was the night before my cousin's wedding, and we had like a family drinks and sort of meet each other kind of night. It was very nice. We had a nice night. We had a couple of drinks. Me and my cousin ended up going out on, like, not the cousin that was getting married, a different cousin, ended up going out on the lash till about 5 o'clock in the morning. And we ended up in this Taunton dive bar where there was a man who was the spitting image of Mick Hucknall, right? Absolutely to a T, this man was Mick Hucknall. If he didn't have a thick right accent, I would not have said he wasn't Mick Hucknall. And he very aggressively insisted we join him in Jaeger bombs for 3 or 4, which we did until the point that he got quite annoying, and then he still insisted. And then my cousin stood up, and now my cousin played rugby for Edinburgh at one point, and he's a big lad. He's a bulky fella, shall we say? And Mick, not Mick, scurried it away back to the bar, and that was the last we ever saw of him. And the reason I bring this story up is like that was it was just it set the tone for that whole wedding weekend, just absolute chaos. So Mick Hucknall lookalike. If you were Mick Hucknall, I apologize. Mick, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I should have had another Jaeger bomb with you, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Mick. Album's a fucking banger. It's sexy as fuck, isn't it?
It is very sexy.
For a man that's short,
for a ginger, it's as sexy as a ginger can
get. For a man
get.
that's short, portly, and ginger, he's a sexy little bastard.
Agreed.
You know, like he brings out some very sort of shagging tunes, which I think is turning into the theme of this podcast.
Although, without giving anything away, Les, I'm really worried that I know one of your choices and you've not yet mentioned it. Which means we're getting closer to it coming around, and we're gonna fight.
Probably, yeah. I think it's going to end badly.
Okay, we're going to fight over your. I think we're going to fight over your number one. Personally,
yeah, it's going to kick off. Yeah, just on Simply Red again. It is like you alluded to, Kate, to separate the art from the artist because he is a gobshite. He's turned into like a professional man, hasn't he? So it's like he's got the obligation to hate Scousers, and it's just boring, man. But yeah, the guy can sing. It is a belter album. It's like it's one of those Simply Red, you couldn't avoid them in the 80s. You just couldn't. So songs like It's Only Love and A New Flame are absolute bangers, and they were everywhere when we were kids. And yeah, it is. I was surprised at how much I liked the album, to be honest, because I didn't think I would. Not gonna lie. But no, it's a brilliant 80s album. And if we're looking at artwork, the cover artwork's great.
It's great.
Such a good cover.
Yay for the gingers! Woo!
Yeah, he really leaned into the red part of Simply Red. But that's actually his best album cover. I think that's pretty
spot on.
Yeah. All right. Keith, or any more on Simply Red before we move to Keith's number 2?
We're good.
Keith, number 2.
Right. This was the hardest choice of my 5. Which was going to be 1 and which was going to be 2. It was like I made this decision probably about 5 minutes before we started recording. And I feel really guilty because I betrayed my kinsman here and didn't give him number 1. But my number 2 album is Raintown by Deacon Blue from 1987.
Lush.
And again, it might be a bit of an indulgence. It might be a bit of a Scottish bias, but what a fucking album it is. Like, it's such a growly, girthy, gritty, it's honey poured over thunder for me. It's such a great album.
Honey poured over thunder. I love that. So the album introduces on Born in a Storm, which is a short, it's about 90 seconds long. It's a melancholic sort of eases you in.
and then it goes seamlessly into the title track, Raintown, which is just, the song is absolutely dripping with frustration and growling laments from Ricky Ross, whose voice is one of those, like, so everyone thinks, you listen to Deacon Blue, everyone thinks Dignity, which is that sort of anthemic type song, right? Which is on this album and is a great tune, but it is probably like the 7th or 8th best song on this album. Like the whole album is just filled with absolute masterpieces. It's, as a whole, the album's like, again, you're noticing a theme with me here. It's a commentary on life in inner city Glasgow, urban city living under the Thatcher government. Life is hard for these people. It's tough. It's a protest song. It's a voice against what they're going through. It's sort of, the themes of the album are poverty, unemployment, and strife, and that comes through in the songs. You've got so with this one, and this is one of very few that we've covered on this podcast, you've got like a joint lead vocalist who is female, which for the 80s was, if it wasn't a solo female artist, there weren't many bands that were led by females in the 80s. And so she wasn't necessarily a lead singer in herself, Lorraine, but she was like a joint lead singer with Ricky Ross. The pair of them were married. So she does the harmonizing vocals on this album, as they were, and a sort of like a soothing sort of like cover to his gritty sort of tone, which rounds out the album nicely. You've got Chocolate Girl, which is just a beautiful song. It's an absolutely beautiful love song, which leads into Dignity, which I'm convinced everyone of a certain vintage, us four included, is born knowing the words to. Like you just grow up knowing the lyrics to Dignity. Everyone knows it. And so this one, we had a bit of discussion over this one, Rob, on how the album finished, and obviously they did a remastered version. We're going with the original version here, where the final track on the album was Town to Be Blamed, and that's my playlist song, because
that would be my pick too, by the way, Keith.
If you listen to the first 3, 4, 5 lines of that song, it's pain, it's torture, it's heartbreak, and it comes through and it just fucking grabs you by the soul. And I challenge anyone to listen to that song and not be sat back in the seat going, fucking hell, what's just happened? It's beautiful. So there you go. That's my final Scottish. Actually, no, that's a lie. It's not my final Scottish. My number one has a tiny little element of Scottish about it, but this is my final purely Scottish album. And my pointless pop trivia on Deacon Blue is the drummer, Dougie Vipond, ended up being the lead presenter on BBC Scotland for sports programming.
That is a random fun fact.
And also, Ricky Ross, the lead singer, is a big Dundee United fan. He was born in Dundee, grew up in Dundee, big Dundee United fan. And after Dundee United won the Scottish Cup in 2010, I think it was. There's a video of the entire Dundee United end singing Dignity, which is just tremendous.
Goosebump inducing that.
I think my favorite thing about Dignity is it's got a very, very niche lyric in it where he says he packs his lunch in a sun-blessed bag.
Yeah, no one knows what a sun-blessed bag is unless you're of a certain age.
Yeah.
First of all, I've been singing the lyrics wrong, and secondly, that's awesome.
What is a sun? So humor me. What is a sun-blessed bag, boys?
It's a type of bread.
It was a brand of bread,
like Warburton's or Hovis.
I don't know who makes bread in America.
I love the way we're going. Hovis, Warburton. Rob's just like, yeah, we still don't.
Basically, when you'd finish. So you know, bread comes in a bag with a little tie at the end.
Yes, I'm familiar with bread. Yes. Essentially,
once you'd finish that loaf of bread, Scottish mums would use the bag of bread, the bag the bread came in, to put your school lunch in it, tie it up, and send you off to school with it.
But yeah, it's a very niche
thrifty. I like it.
I think Raintown probably my favourite on this album, just because, like I said in the group, it sounds like, Kate, you know regular show, you know where I'm going with this. Do you know, like every 80s film where it's sort of like the underdogs, they're gonna win, but they've got to go through some pain and there's some montage where they're doing something. Raintown to me just sounds like that. It's like it's got that sort of 80s cinematic feel to it.
In the exact same vein, right? Love's Great Fears should have been on Romance in the Stone as part of like that. Yeah. Do you know, it's got that like whimsical, you know, like 1980s fit. It's a beautiful opening to a track. That it's really nice. Now, I hadn't really paid much attention to the rest of that album in all honesty, and it was an absolute joy to listen to it. Beautiful.
Keith, I will give you the compliment of saying that of all the albums that we put into this mixer for this show to listen to, this is the one that I think made the biggest impression on me. Like, this is the one that I ended up liking the most, that because I'd never heard of Deacon Blue, never heard anything about this. So much so that I literally ordered, like I found someone selling a used copy on Discogs, and I bought a copy that's going to be sent to me here in the next couple of weeks. I'm so excited to get it. I could not believe how much I enjoyed this album. I think I was reading up on how that Raintown was about. I think it was about Edinburgh, but I'm not totally sure. Glasgow. Okay, but I don't know. There was just so many songs on this that hit me, but in particular, you know, I like the title track is incredible. I Was With You on Chocolate Girl. When Will You Make My Phone Ring? Loaded. All great. The last two tracks, Love's Great Fears, and to me, Town to Be Blamed, I think was the best finishing track of all the albums that I've heard on this. I think, I mean, in terms of just like what a way to wrap up an album. And it was just so great. Especially when you realize that that's the original ending of the album. And I think we were looking at like the 2-disc deluxe version at one point, though. I'm sure there's some nice B-sides on that as well. But
yeah,
one of the things about Deacon Blue in particular, Keith, I thought that I found myself kind of trying to do that thing that we all do where we're like, well, what does this sound like? And when I was doing some research on it, and I thought you would appreciate this in particular, someone, Spin Magazine had written a review of this back in the day, and they said it's, quote, a listener's delight, yet a reviewer's frustration. There's no easy comparisons, no simple descriptions, no trendy affiliations, because few other acts make such surprisingly timeless, sophisticated, and genuinely emotional pop music these days. I don't know if you could say it any better than that, Keith. I did not know how to pigeonhole this and or classify this along with other things that I'd listened to. It felt very personal, and it felt very much its own thing. And I imagine that's how you felt as well.
This could easily have been my number one if it wasn't for how good number one is. It's just such a beautiful album. It's a punch you in the face record. Like, every single song has an impact on you, and there's not a lot of records I can say that for, where every single song hits you in a different way.
Yeah.
Heavy.
All right, guys. Anything else on the absolutely lovely Deacon Blue Raintown before we move forward? All right. We're to the main event, the number ones. Oh my God, look how much time has passed. This is I can just
We're
feel
only 242 in.
Like Matt Jones does not even understand how upset he is right now, Les.
We love you, Matt. Sorry.
Anyway, that's a joke, Matt. We love you. I know you care. I know that you're. There's no way he's listening this deep into this anyway. So, Les, start us off. What was your number one? These were hard picks for everyone, but what was your number one?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I haven't done my number two yet. Sorry. Yeah? I can't believe that. That's my bad. Here, I'm just looking at the clock. I got to stop doing this. Okay. My number two, guys, and this is one of those where I'm also just, very curious about the impressions that you guys have for this one. But my number two was The Head on the Door by The Cure. Probably, ironically, maybe their worst album art, but my favorite Cure album. I absolutely adore this album from the standpoint of this is right in the meaty middle of when The Cure became absolute pop hit makers, along with their kind of trademark post-punk sort of gothy sound. Like The Cure get sort of lumped into being this like sort of goth type band, and the themes are kind of bleak at times. Like I joke all the time that like the first few albums by The Cure, like, especially like Faith and Pornography, like those albums are like very much the brothers or first cousins of that bleak Joy Division type music. The Head and a lot of their albums, especially like the other one that I thought about including on here was Disintegration from 1989, which is an absolute masterpiece by them. But The Cure will do a lot of these albums where, because of Robert Smith's guitars, they'll do these kind of like Dire Straits, like these longer, 6, 7, 8, 9-minute tracks. Even their newest album that came out last year has some of that, and it's incredible. But where Head in the Door stands out is that I don't think there's a song longer than 4 minutes. I think something around that range on the entire album. This is when they were like, we can make incredible pop songs. And literally my favorite Cure song is track 1 on this album, In Between Days. I mean, you hear it and it immediately, like, I don't know that we talked about songs that are quintessentially 80s. And I will say that The Cure may even have a bit of an outsized impact and influence in America, even compared to how they're viewed in the UK. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. But look, In Between Days, 6 Different Ways is low-key one of my all-time favorite Cure songs. Close to Me, A Night Like This, Push. I mean, look, it is stellar from start to finish, and it's sort of like in the same vein of, I think sometimes people will talk about, the Beatles' Rubber Soul is sort of this is their perfect 45 to 50-minute album, 10 tracks, and it's, everything kind of hits right. This really is this is more kind of upbeat and sunshiny probably than some of their other albums are in terms of the pop hooks. And really, look, Robert Smith's been with his high school girlfriend or his school girlfriends. They've been married for like 50 years now or whatever. And so many of these songs are about her, I know, but they really are just beautiful love songs, and a perfect fusion of their new wave and their goth and everything into like pop perfection type songs. But love this album. Came out in 1985. Hard to pick my favorite Cure album, but that's the one that I ultimately went with. Thoughts on Head in the Door by The Cure, guys?
Close to Me is an absolutely beautiful track. If that comes on in the house, my kids are bopping.
Yeah,
it's feel good. It's upbeat.
You can dance to it.
And it's a bop. There's something really quite timeless to that. I think if our Ellie was to pick something along those lines, she'd be going with like, I Think We're Alone Now or something by Tiffany. If this came on, she'd stay on. It's got that kind of energy to it. I think there was something about the 80s that we look for the bops because it took away from the mundanity of life, right? Oh yeah, I really like it. I think it's got some belter tracks on it, but Close to Me is probably the timeless one for me.
Nice.
I think for me, the Cure always surprised me because they never always give you what you expect or what your preconception of the Cure is. And I think this album proper encapsulates that. It does move away, like you said, Robert, away from the gothy side of things, goes into the more poppy thing, which I think was a bit of an affliction for every band in the mid-'80s, wasn't it? If you made it as far as 1985, you were definitely going to go more poppy. That's kind of what a lot of bands did.
Yeah.
And just the start to go from In Between Days to Kyoto Song, two very, very different stylistically songs, but it works brilliantly. And this album shows, and they did in subsequent years, how they could really write a fucking radio hit, like really nail what is good for the radio. So you can look through this album, you can listen to it, and you think, right, that's a hit, that's a hit, that's a hit. And they were, and it is a belter of an album. It doesn't, if your conception of The Cure is a miserable goth band because you've listened to like a Forest, Lullaby, that's your sort of thing, great tracks.
Yeah.
This is completely different, and it moves them on in a bit of a different direction, which kind of sets up, songs like Friday I'm in Love and those other hits they had later on. Mm-hmm. This sort of leans towards that, and yeah, it's a belter. And as you say as well, it's all done in like 50 minutes or something. So
yeah. Keith.
Yeah. Again, find myself agreeing with Kate on the playlist song. Close to Me it's a banger. It's just it's untouchable. I think it's very sort of, don't know if anyone else got this from the album. It's got like strong Human League influences through it. Very sort of that pop.
That's a great shout.
That's a good shout. Yeah.
That was the band I was trying to think of before.
Oh my God, of course.
It was Human League, and they split and formed Heaven 17.
Very, very sort of similar vibes from that. You can't go wrong with The Cure. Like Robert Smith is one of life's good guys, so to speak. He's non-problematic celebrity.
He's not Mick.
In his essence, he's just a good egg. Bless him. A huge fan of this album. Like I said, the intro, the first couple of tracks are just a great way to kick off an album, and I'm a big fan of this pick. I think this is a very good pick to be this high up in the lists.
Last thing I'll say, just to kind of wrap it up, Keith, something you pointed out is, yeah, Robert Smith he's not only non-problematic, but he was able to like get to a point with this album where he's like, I can make radio friendly tunes, and yet no one ever questioned, is The Cure somehow compromising themselves artistically? Like it all still made sense. It all still sounded like The Cure. And a lot of that's because his voice is very distinctive, but also I would say, this is just a guy that, is full of integrity, and the band, there's been changes in the band over the years to a degree, but they've had a decent amount of continuity overall. But this is just an ultra classic album with a bunch of ultra classic songs. Like Close to Me is I love so many songs on this album. A Night Like This is also one I love, Close to Me. But I think I can't escape. I think my track, the one I'm going to put on our playlist, is In Between Days, just because it's just perfect. I love it, and it's always been my favorite. So, all right, guys, we are down to our number ones. We are finally at the finish line. Les, you can do the honors of kicking us off with your number one. You're on mute, buddy, if you're trying to talk. We're almost there.
Oh my God, it's 2025.
I know. It's like a work Zoom call. Anyone who uses Teams, by the way, don't you hate the way that mutes you automatically, even if you start the meeting? Every meeting I'm in, I start talking, I'm on mute. Anyway.
Can't bring 2025 problems into the 1980s, okay? It was
well, this is true, yeah. It's nearly 2026. 2026, I will never leave myself on mute. This was an easy one for me because it's probably my favourite band from the 80s. It's the first band I really started listening to. So my uncle so the album is absolutely by Madness. It's Madness' second album. my uncle had a lot of Specials, Madness, The Select, a load of ska records that I used to listen to. Honestly, when I was like 4 or 3, I would listen to these songs and be obsessed. Madness on this album particularly had that appeal with songs like Baggy Trousers. So as a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old, it had that instant radio appeal and it was quite funny. And I think this is the album where they broke through as a ska band with the Specials, like I said, and the Select and that two-tone movement in the late 70s. This is the album that sort of moved them on to the sort of, they started pulling on more musical influences and sort of shaped their sound for the 80s, really, as they moved on through the 80s. Again, a lot of social commentary. So Embarrassment is about people's reaction to a mixed race couple having a baby. And that's my pick off this album, I think, as well. It's just a stunning song. What else is there? Not Home Today. It's about someone going down for like someone, basically. So it's just very real problems at the time, how society viewed it. And I think musically as well, Madness is sometimes looked on as a little bit of a novelty band because people think of things like Baggy Trousers, Wings of a Dove, that I've been driving in my car, those sort of songs. But musically, they were brilliant. A 7-piece band, and every one of them was absolutely brilliant at what they did. Mike Barson, the piano player, incredible. He wrote a lot of the songs and the music to the songs. And yeah, I just find it an absolutely fantastic album. Disappear, Shadow of Fear, Overdone. Take It or Leave It is a strange one. That's like, it brings the tone of the album down a bit. It's very, very unmadness-like song. And I think that one's about them finding fame and dealing with that and how people perceive them now that they're famous. And they actually brought out a film called Take It or Leave It, which is about their formation. They're all in it. It's a terrible film, but if you like Madness, it's brilliant. And it's just about their formation as a band. The best thing in it is they do a scene on the London Underground where they pick up 2 fluorescent tubes and have a lightsaber fight. So that was the crossover I needed in my life at the time. But yeah, that's my choice. I realise Madness aren't to everyone's taste. It was an easy choice for me, but I would love to hear what everyone else thinks about that.
Rob, what did you make of Madness?
I've been dying to know what you made of Madness.
I will say this, and I believe Keith's number one as well. Like, I will not lie. These were, I don't know if is this a case of where the cultural divide is too big? I don't know. But here's the thing. I did not dislike the albums. What I found myself doing as I continued to listen to Madness less was I kept being struck by like how the this is 1980. This is the kind of infancy, well, depending on your perspective of like the ska, but that ska sound. And the more I listened to it, the more I was like, I can see, because when I was a teenager, I definitely, like most suburban kids in America in the 90s, you had a ska phase. We all had a ska phase. It's just, anyone who says they didn't is probably lying. But there are all these, the thing about ska is that ska is not this kind of monolith. Like, some of it is much more reggae tinged. Like, I think Madness there's a little more a kind of a combo of like both reggae and kind of a folky sound to it. But also at the same time, I would listen to it and think, yeah, but I can draw lines from this straight to Sublime and a couple of their first couple albums as well, believe it or not, in terms of some of the ways in which they kind of leveraged that beat a little bit. But I think it's one I need to spend more time with for sure. I particularly liked Embarrassment, Les. I really enjoyed that one, and not surprisingly, it's one of the singles off of that album. But and I like Baggy Trousers as well. But no, it was very interesting, and it made me, think like how much of this, dovetails with like the Specials and with some of these other bands as well. I just, I definitely think it was one of the more unique sounding ones that I had heard for sure. Definitely need to spend more time with it. Certain things I liked, but I'll be the first to admit that it's probably something that may be more quintessentially English and it may be a little harder for me as an American to grab onto it in the same way.
The sound is very English and very Cockney, to be honest.
Yeah,
like,
Cockney.
So
that's maybe the word.
It's even that sort of niche. It's very, very Cockney, but yeah, just a band I always loved as a kid. And
Nice. Keith, Kate.
Get to it, Keith.
Kate wants to go last. I love it.
This is a very Les album.
Like,
this is if I listen to this, I think of Les. Like, it's just absolutely stinks of Les Roberts. There's very little more to say on it. It's a great album. It's like some madness. The whole ska thing has never really been my scene. Like, it doesn't move me in the same way it moves other people. I've always sort of not gravitated towards that type of thing. I get why they're so culturally successful in the music they produce for the audience that they produce it for. That said, Embarrassment is a banger. It's an absolute banger. You can't deny it. Like, and one thing Will says, I posted a Feral Trolley the other day, and Les used a Madness, / Suggs song for it. So for that reason, it gets a in my book. It's never been like, and I'm going to say this now, and I'll probably get a lot of hate for it, in the very same way that Jules Holland has never resonated with me. It's all very Southern English, and I can't relate to it. I can't, like, no part of me relates to it. But that said, Embarrassment is a banger.
Okay, Kate, you've had this shit-eating grin for a bit, so I can't wait to hear it.
I feel like we've totally built this up now. Just in the last, what was that, been 6 minutes since you started talking about Madness, never mind the album, but Madness itself, I feel as if I've grown some respect for understanding that deeper level of how they've narrated, life, in that we've talked about that in some of the previous choices that we've made. And I never would have put Madness into that same sphere because I've always been swept up in the novelty, always. Yeah. And it, if anything, it grates on me, right? Rather than leaning into the messaging and and the fact that it's very much of its time, in the same way that we've just talked so passionately about the Christians in the in the late 70s, early 80s in Liverpool was such a transformative time for the city, and I got it because it spoke to me in that way. Madness has always been on the novelty spectrum for me. However, hearing somebody talk about the bands, never mind the album, passionate about that side of it, like Keith just said there, if there was a band that was just so Les for those reasons, it would be Madness. Hence, not that you could have seen people clapping in the background to Keith talking there. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh God, that better not be his number one.
I still got yours to come now.
And yet we can agree on so much and come to complete loggerheads over our number one. Love it. It's a really interesting one in that it's Madness to me is actually quite easy listening because I don't hear like the undertone of what it's illustrating in that way, which I think is actually really interesting because I've never thought about it like that before. And obviously some of it, it's fun, of course it is, but when you kind of dial into stuff like that, I mean, I'm about to talk about a soundtrack off a film as my number one. So take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt. But yeah, I've never looked at it like that, and that's the beauty of being able to dial into stuff like this, isn't it? To be able to hear somebody else talk, passionate about it rather, to understand that deeper meaning. So yeah, still absolutely despise it, but I respect you.
Thanks.
Love that. Love the honesty. I really do love the honesty. Les, you want to have a final word on it before we move on?
No, I think that's it. I'll take that as the most Les Roberts album ever. I'm happy with that.
All right, fantastic. All right, Kate, I've been waiting for you to get to this album because now I know what your number one is going to be. So take it away, Kate.
I might cry. This is emotional. This is hugely, hugely emotional for me. This ridiculous album. My number one choice I've written this down as the Oklahoma 80s special. on my notes.
The Oklahoma. Now, why is that? I did not even think the word Oklahoma would be uttered on this podcast today.
That's
But
what I'm scribbling away my little girly pink pen. I was like, oh, this is what will be my number one choice.
Kate, before you continue, some housekeeping. Les, what was your track off of the album that you wanted to pick for Madness?
Okay, it was Embarrassment.
Embarrassment. Okay, all right. Sorry, Kate, go ahead. Sorry for all the build-up.
Well.
That feels quite apt now, Les. Oh, it looks like I hate your choice, but I respect you. Embarrassment. My number one UK-based album choice from the 80s is It's a Kind of Magic by Queen, 1986. Not quite smack bang in the middle of the decade, but we weren't far off. Obviously written as soundtrack to Highlander, which
yes,
never seen. My brother was on.
There can only be one.
There can only be one.
He was he would say that
only be one.
Hitting me with whatever he could find, like the inner tubes of like wrapping paper and stuff. There could be, I would, yeah. All of that paid no mind to me. The artwork was created by Disney illustrators, and it has been burned into my mind. I would know that at 100 yards, and I'm practically blind. And this all came about before, obviously, not too much longer afterwards when Freddie died. And this album kickstarted this love of Queen that has been beaten in, not literally, into my children, all three of them. And the hardest part of this choice is choosing one track, because it also kickstarted a love of something much wider in music for me. And Ellie will kill, my eldest daughter Ellie will kill me for this, but I'm going to choose One Vision over It's a Kind of Magic. Because the intro was and is like nothing I'd ever heard before. And even as well, I mean, when I say I get emotional about it, even hear it now, especially specifically on beats, over ear as in canned beats, oh my Lord, it is utterly incredible. The lyrics are beautiful. The theatrics, which is fully Freddie all over during this time, it just absolutely superb. I think it is quite literally a work of art. And getting my kids to sing It's a Kind of Magic, and they all sing a different bit of the band as you go through, is an absolute joy. And they've been doing that since they were about 3. My dad adores it. My mum adores it. And it's just it just kickstarted a love of Queen in general. This particular album, and if I could go back to go to any gig, it would always hands down be Queen at Wembley. I just one of the life's great tragedies for me is that I never ever got to see Freddie Mercury perform live and have to make do with like Live Aid and whatnot. So, but it's a very good second. One Vision for me, purely for the intro, but it is absolute banger. Les Roberts, prove me wrong.
You gotta hate Queen.
And now for the counterpoint, Les Roberts.
Go on with your dirty little grin or whatever Rob said before.
Yeah, I've just never liked Queen. It's like it's just I don't like the whole sort of operatic, anthemic, like big. I never like that. It probably goes back to me ska and punk sensibilities, really. It's totally at odds with all that.
It really is, isn't it?
But One Vision definitely is a banger, and like you say, that intro is amazing, and that's also off another film soundtrack as well.
Is it?
Iron Eagle, yeah. It's off the Iron Eagle soundtrack, which is an '86 film about an airplane, like an American fighter jet or something.
Oh well, I never knew that.
Louis Gossett Jr. Classic Iron Eagle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go. But yeah, and even like Friends Will Be Friends and Who Wants to Live Forever, lovely tracks. So while I don't really like it, I respect your choice.
We will never speak again.
Kate,
Never.
I have to read you exactly what I wrote, because a lot of times what I was doing was I was listening to these albums and I would just kind of jot down whatever thoughts came to mind. Okay. And I'll admit that like latter day Queen, and when I say latter, like mid to late 80s Queen was sort of a blind spot for me.
Yeah.
Though ironically, I didn't even know who Queen was until 1991. And that's because like most Americans, Wayne's World was my intro to Queen because of Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a fucking great song and one of my favorite movie moments ever. But here's what I wrote down about this, and it's mixed. I was like, this album is schmaltz, is what I wrote. But then I wrote, but counterpoint, this album is the soundtrack to fucking The Highlander, which I gotta admit, you gotta understand. Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery and the badassery of this movie, you can't separate the kind of tonal aesthetic of the movie from this music either. So like, Who Wants to Live Forever? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm so glad you mentioned One Vision, because I actually think that might have been my favorite track on the album, which I was kind of surprised to feel that way. But the other thing I wrote was that, here's the thing. I don't think all the songs really, they don't all totally work for me, but yet Freddie Mercury was such a one-of-one talent that he elevated even kind of mediocre songs to still being pretty awesome, because he's Freddie Mercury. And Les, I take your point about sort of the operatic rock. Like, there's definitely like a, oh God, is it like Meatloaf, Meatloaf, Broadway rock feel to Queen, and I totally get that. But that was for Freddie Mercury. If he had not gotten into rock, could have been an opera singer. He was so ultra talented. And again, it's not for everyone, but I totally get it. And Kate, as someone who was pontificating about the childhood adoration and connection I had over Def Leppard Hysteria, like, I will not fault you for this. I get it. There are other Queen albums I like better, but also The Highlander, which I still love. And after this, I kind of want to rewatch that. But
I might watch it, now we've mentioned it, I might watch it over Christmas, it's been on like in the house because my brother was obsessed with it, but I've never actually sat down and watched it. So
it's a mood. It's a whole vibe. I cannot believe you've never sat down and watched The Highlander and you picked this album.
Should we all watch? I think we should all watch Highlander and do a podcast about it.
Yeah, we'll do a 3-hour podcast about it.
A kick just about Highlander.
We'll tailor onto this one. Matt won't mind.
The one thing I remember about Highlander properly is I was watching. So there's like a really short sex scene in it. It's not graphic or anything, but there's a sex scene in it. And I was watching it in my mate's house, and his mum and dad were sat on the couch as well. When was it out? About 1986. So we were like 9, 10.
85, 86.
And it just crushed me. The two of us just looked at each other and just sort of sank into the couch like,
is that what this is all about, really? Is that why you hate me?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think that scarred me, basically. That's what it is.
Keith, do you have any thoughts about A Kind of Magic by Queen and or The Highlander?
I am an unashamed Queen fan.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Did not see that coming.
Just majestic. Like, the output from Queen is, considering they did it for so long over such a period, like, they evolved with the times. The output was always majestic for me, and I know that will draw the ire of Mr. Roberts in the top corner there, but I don't care. I think Queen were majestic. My one gripe here is the choice of the play of this song. And I would have picked Who Wants to Live Forever.
Yeah, that would have been.
Because that is in my top 2 Queen songs of all time, right? That's considering Queen's back catalogue and the bangers they had, that's in my top 2. And I can't pick if that's number 1 or that's number 2 between that one and Love of My Life.
Oh, what a track.
Man. Yeah. That's going deep there.
Right.
It's for the strings.
When Freddie wrote a song from the heart instead of 4 minutes of gibberish, my God, like, the man was haunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, like, Who Wants to Live Forever is just it's so just fucking hits you right there. I can't put into words what it makes me feel when I hear it. It's just such a great song.
Agreed.
Love it. I did not expect. I think my favorite part of this entire podcast is the curveball of thinking that one of you would really hate something or like something, and then just being really surprised.
You didn't think I like Queen?
I don't know. Like, the thing is that it's funny getting to know predominantly Northern English people over the course of this relationship with Everton, or Scottish people. You know, like,
Excuse me.
This is where it goes downhill now. What have you done?
I just mean
Excuse me, predominantly Northern English.
I mean that it is. I sometimes think that, you know, well, there are these kind of quintessentially London type acts that people will be like, you know, I don't really like, can't relate to that, don't connect with it, whatever. But yeah, no, kind of pleasantly surprised that, like, I really like Queen. Again, I was, speaking of greatest hits, Kate, like, classic Queen was a cassette that I had as a kid, which was essentially their first, you know, it was a big greatest hits album that came out right as the Bohemian Rhapsody fever was hitting in America, and it had so many great songs on there. But no, I've loved this. So
I know we're vehemently against greatest hits albums here as part of this whole process, but Queen's greatest hits album, right, touches me in a way that I cannot speak, because when I was I must have been about 12, 13, whatever, right? We went on holiday to Nantes in Paris, in France, on the west coast of France, right? And we drove from Scotland to Nantes.
wow.
Right? So the whole way through England, ferry across, and then drove down the west coast of France, right? 90% of the soundtrack to that journey was Queen's greatest hits, right? And it was me and my dad sitting in the front seat. Obviously, my dad was driving because I was like 12, 13. That album, I know it's the greatest hits. But it touches on me for whenever I hear Queen now, is it brings all of that back. Just driving through the country, sitting next to my dad, chatting absolute shit, singing along to some absolute bangers, Fat Bottom Girls, Seven Seas of Rye, whatever. Like,
yeah.
Don't Stop Me Now.
This is why I can't be completely down on greatest hits albums. I wouldn't include it in one of these because I stick by the rules because I'm a good guy and I play by the rules.
We'll do a whole pod of our favorite greatest hits albums someday, guys.
Like,
all right?
we could do a pod on greatest hits albums.
Kate's face.
And it would just Queen would be probably my number one because of that trip. It just and it throws back to what we said right at the start of the pod. Like, it throws back to what we said right at the start of the pod, in that, like, music transports you. It takes you to a point in time. And it does that better than any single medium can. Like, all you have to hear is like 3 or 4 bars from a song, and you're back there. You're back in the memory, right? And that is what's so fucking great about music. And that's why, like, these pods, like the last one we did 5 years ago, this one, like, this is what I love about these, is the research into these has taken me back to certain points in my life that I'd completely forgotten. Like, I wouldn't have recalled to them apart from listening to a certain song. And it's why music will forever be, for me, the greatest medium.
It is. It's beautiful. Rob, have you had in the States compilation albums called Now and then a number?
Yes.
Like,
oh yeah. Yeah. No, those were
that's why I did the Rigby face.
Now that's what I call music.
No, that's what I call music. Yeah, we had tons. We had all of those. Absolutely.
Music.
Just on that, There's a playlist on Spotify of every Now album.
So,
I would send it.
Oh my God.
I'll send it in the group now.
Now
It's
3
ridiculous.
had Freddie Mercury, I think, don't quote me, but it was an early one. Freddie Mercury and what was the opera singer's name?
Barcelona.
Are we talking Barcelona here?
Pavarotti.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah, we need to do that because I want to do now.
Barcelona.
All right.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'm going to keep this moving along. This is fantastic. And Keith, I'm co-signing as hard as I can on what you just said about music. Even photographs of my family don't take me back, or friends don't take me back the same way songs do. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
Keith, you're number one, my man.
My number one. I have, well, to a degree, I've implemented Rob's loophole on this one, saying that Irish bands are allowed. Because for me, they're described as a British band because 90% of the band was from the UK.
Yeah.
But for me, quintessentially, they are an Irish band.
That's fine.
I have gone for 1985's Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash by the Pogues.
Before you start, Keith, can I just say the first note I wrote, Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash, an album title that as soon as I read it, I heard it in Keith's voice in my head.
Right. This album, right, it's a smoky pub on a wet afternoon. The band setting up in the corner, a beautiful blend of contemporary and Irish folk. It's joy, it's heartache, it's punk, it's power, it's the Pogues at their visceral best, right? It's Shane MacGowan's inimitable voice, his vocals. You just cannot, there is no single artist in the world that compares to Shane MacGowan. Not one comes close. It's such a punch in the face album. It kicks off on the sick bed of Cuchulainn, which is a lovely sort of Irish folksy fast beat, the drums in the background, and then slows right down into Old Main Drag. They throw in a little instrumental number with the Wildcats Kilkenny it sort of starts off jazzy contemporary and then blends into Irish folk. And then you've got my Scottish connection to this album, Kate O'Riordan, who was born to Irish and Scottish parents. She does the vocals on A Man You Don't Meet Every Day. Just beautiful. And that was one of 2 songs she ever did lead vocals for the Pogues on. The other one being, where have I got? I had it written down. Oh, I'm fucking. There's another one. Right. There's another one. There was supposed to be a third one. The Fairy Tale of New York was written as a duet for Kate O'Riordan and Shane MacGowan. And then they recorded it with Kirsty MacColl. And there was a bit of a fallout over that. There was a bit of a, what the fuck? This is my song. Why have you given it to her? Obviously, it did quite well. You know what I mean? Everyone still seems to know it. But there you go. And then you get to the middle of the album, right? So we talk a lot about the start of the album, the end of the album on these podcasts. I'm going to focus in on the middle of the album. You have 2 tracks of a 12-track album here, 6 and 7, which are the most sing-alongable pub songs you've got going. So you've got number 6, you've got Sally McLennan, and then number 7, you've got the iconic Dirty Old Town. You put me in any Irish bar in the world, those 2 songs come on, I'm up, I'm gone, I'm involved. Just absolutely brilliant. like when you are 6 pints of Guinness deep, you cannot think of two better songs to sing along to. All in all, it's like, for me, it's a beautiful album. It's a beautiful blend of that contemporary jazzy style with Irish folk. You got Shane McGowan's vocals, which are just like, it's Shane McGowan. You can't fucking replicate the man. He's one of a kind. And to drag Everton into the podcast, he's a good fucking toffee, or he was a good fucking toffee. God bless him.
I was wondering what killed him prematurely, so it's good to know.
Well, it was Everton. It was clearly, forget the alcoholism and the drugs. It was Everton.
Alcoholism is just a symptom of Everton, so that's.
Well, there you go. Was it worth me like implementing the Irish loophole to drag this one in?
I don't care.
Absolutely. Like, this is just one of the best albums you'll ever sit and listen to. And if you're not into that Irish folksy type thing, then fuck you, quite frankly, because it's beautiful. It's a style of music that deserves a deep dive on its own.
Gosh.
And that's it. That's my number one. And it took that to see out Deacon Blue.
Wow. All right. Thoughts?
Yeah, it takes it taps into all the punk sensibilities and the Irish protest songs. It is. It's not one that ever gets mentioned really, and sort of when you're talking about 80s albums and stuff. I think maybe because it doesn't sound like it's from the 80s. It could be. It's a timeless album, isn't it? It could be from any decade. It's its own thing. It's not influenced by any sort of pop sensibilities of the time or anything like that. But yeah, it's a belter. It's so good, and it is just it's another one that's just completely in your face. Yeah, a great choice, Keith, and definitely where the using the loophole for 100%.
Nice, Kate.
I'm still reeling from everything he said. I don't think that you can't clap back on something like that.
Yeah.
Surely the majority of people, especially here as well, just from a Liverpool point of view with Irish connections and stuff, it moves you. It does, whether you intend it to or not. Maybe there's some kind of weird, kind of subliminal thing that draws you back in because it is all about the storytelling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So take me hat off to you, Keith. Beautiful choice.
Keith, is there an opportunity on one of my visits to come over and somehow listen to this in a more appropriate setting, some kind of pub setting with, 6 Guinnesses deep and all of that? Like I do feel almost like it's so tied to visceral kind of common experiences that you and others have had.
I think what we have to do on that note, Rob, is you have to come over for longer than a long weekend, right? Sure. Come over for a week.
I come over usually for like 6 days. Right? That ought to
be. What we'll do is we'll fly over to Ireland for a couple of days. Okay. We'll have a couple of days in Ireland. Hit the folksy type pubs. Do the tourism thing. Let you experience Irish pub culture where the band sets up in the corner, right? You get in the pub and you see the band setting up in the corner. There's about 7 or 8 of them, right? They've all got these weird fucking shaped instruments you've never seen before. They set up in the corner. They've got like fucking a whiskey and a Guinness in front of them. They're all fucking settled, right? And then they just launch into 4 hours of fucking folk songs and you are just locked in. So I spent a week in Belfast a couple of months ago for work and was fortunate enough to have a night where I went to a pub called Kelly Cellars in the middle of Belfast. It's a very Irishy type pub, and they had the live band on in the corner, and we got there just as they were setting up, and we were there for the whole set, and they play every single sort of Irish rebel song you'd like, but they also throw in the popular folk songs that aren't about the rebel movement. They're about like just Irish history, and it was fucking magnificent. And like, until you've experienced that in person, you haven't seen live. It's a bold claim. You haven't seen live music until you've seen an Irish folk band play in a pub.
Yeah. Well, and I've been to Ireland and I've been into to pubs, but I think that there's an immersion aspect to this that I think would help me to connect even more in a way that is a little harder for me now, even though I did actually enjoy the album, though it definitely felt like, let's just be real, it felt slightly alien to me in a way it wouldn't for you guys, because I am in Oklahoma, I am Puerto Rican, I am like,
well, I mean,
different
Rob,
vibe.
I have zero Irish background. Like, my family are, loath to say it, staunch Rangers, Scottish, Protestant, like right wing type fucking thingy, right?
Yeah.
I rebel against that because I don't believe in any of it. So, like, the whole Irish sort of rebellion against the crown resonates with me. And as a result, I've got into like the culture, the music of it all, and like it talks to me. It talks to me on a level. When you hear those songs sung in a pub just by a couple of old fellas with a fucking mandolin and a flute or whatever, like they're just playing the songs in the corner.
I want the squeezy thing, whatever that thing is that they squeeze.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like it's a different experience musically, and like I've always been a big fan of live music. Like, I love live music. I think live music is one of life's greatest simple pleasures.
Amen. Yeah.
Going and seeing a band live, like being part of the experience of it being expressed draws you into it. And that works as well on a pub scale, where you're just like, it's just like 6 or 7 fellas in a corner playing instruments and singing a song, and every single person in there gets into it. It's a huge thing. And that's what this album is for me. It's a pub album. Like, I could listen to a band play this whole album start to finish in a pub, and it would move me.
Nice. All right, well, I'm sold.
So for housekeeping purposes, my song from the album is Sally McLennan.
Okay.
Because it's a fucking tune, and it's basically a song about going on the piss and somebody gets shit-faced and you have to send them home.
Is this subject matter you can relate to, Keith?
I have been both the sender home and the sendee home. I can relate on both levels.
Very nice. Okay. Well, guys, we're down to our final one. What a marathon. I cannot believe we've done this.
We've never spent this much time together, by the way.
No. I feel like I should have some Gatorade or something right now just to hydrate myself.
Gatorade.
My number one album, and I'll freely admit, this is one that would never have been one I would have picked 10, 15 years ago, but I kind of rediscovered them later in life, and now I celebrate their entire catalog. And picking one of their albums from their kind of golden era was very, very difficult, but at the end of the day, I just thought, I'm going to go with Diamond Life by the great Sade. And the first thing I will say about Sade, which I don't think is as apparent as maybe it ought to be, and I frankly didn't even know this before as well. She is named Sade. That is right. Her name is Sade Adu, but the name of the band is Sade. When they refer to Sade, they refer to the band. And the reason that is particularly important is because they have had the exact same lineup since they started and have never deviated from that, which is something I really respect in bands. You don't see that very often anymore. But Diamond Life is a transcendent album for me because there's something about it that, you know, is both luxurious and aspirational, and yet is also full of like heartache, and is full of, you know, kind of relating to people who are trying to essentially hustle and, you know, come from working class, trying to, you know, get up to a certain level. It is about manipulation. It is about manipulative people. There's all kinds of weird characters and stories in this thing. But yet all of it, we spoke before about the greatness of sexy sax, the saxy 80s. There's plenty of that in there. It is smooth as hell. It is one of the quintessential neo soul albums before there was ever a term called neo soul. It is one of the forebearers of Quiet Rain, Quiet Storm, which is a very particular genre of, you know, R&B, smooth jazz. You know, it's sophistopop is another. Again, we'd come back to that again, but from the opener, oh my God, literally the first track is Smooth Operator, which, by the way, the album version of Smooth Operator is so much better to me than the radio version that they always try to shorten, because it's got that little bit of a monologue that she's kind of, you know, speaking at the beginning of it as it's leading into the song. But I love every track on this album. I love her. I love their story. I love the fact that she basically was, you know, came from, you know, immigrant parents, you know, grew up poor, and essentially she happened to be really beautiful. And so she was able to kind of parlay part-time modeling into being a backup singer for a band, because music was what she actually enjoyed doing. That's where she met Stuart Mathewson, who's in Sade, and they formed a band together. And then they just decided to start writing and making music together. You go through Sade's entire catalog, there is just tons of like political, social stuff that, you know, almost seems like, it seems surprising to you because the music itself sounds like the soundtrack to a luxurious tropical, you know, nighttime setting somewhere in the Bahamas or something like that half the time. And yet the subversion of the music is how actually, you know, interesting and kind of surprising some of the lyrics will be. Smooth Operator is absolutely a stone cold classic. It was the song that made them a hit here. Ironically, Your Love Is King was a bigger hit over in the UK than Smooth Operator. But dude, Hang On To Your Love, Frankie's First Affair, When Am I Going to Make a Living, which is just basically a song about her grinding to try to, you know, become, you know, to make enough money to get by. And then low key, maybe my favorite song on the album, and I think it's the one I'm going to pick just to not go with Smooth Operator, Your Love Is King, is Cherry Pie, which I think is just an immaculate song. And every one of these, for the most part, yeah, there are some that are a little more slow burns, but all of them are kind of danceable as well. They're all sexy as fuck. They're great. I love this album. I love this band. I own the box set that includes every one of these albums. I love Sade, and I'm very curious to hear what you guys think of Sade.
This was a staple in the Roberts household from 1984. Me dad had the tape, and it was absolutely hammered. It's such a good album. It wasn't part of it necessarily a scene, but it sort of fits in with like Style Council, early Everything But the Girl, latterly Public Curiosity Killed the Cat, that sort of Ronnie Scott's London jazz type scene sound. And yeah, again, it's another timeless one for me. Definitely, it's very much of its time, but still timeless as well. Somehow, I think it's a brilliant album, and it is smooth as you like. And Keith, I know you're an 85 child, but I hate to say it, I think anyone born after 1984 would probably concede to this album.
There's some fairness to that.
It's the start of Keith's villain story.
All right, Kate.
Oh, thank you so much for choosing this. It is utterly beautiful. Didn't figure I would probably have to check with my brother actually, well, or my mum and dad. Didn't figure in our repertoire like growing up at all. This is very much one that I've picked up on later on, way later into the party, but instantly knew it was around when I was a kid. You know that it was popular then, and yet it still sounds so fresh, so so viable now. And I think it's an absolute work of art, and also just it's cool as fuck as well. Without trying too hard, without trying to be something. And falls on my playlist. It falls into the same categories with a lot of old school new school-ish Janet Jackson, Terence Trent D'Arby.
Terence Trent D'Arby, great shout. Yeah,
that kind of like wishing well by. Anyway, it's all within that kind of vibe, and I love that. It doesn't try too hard. It's just beautifully timeless.
Effortlessly cool. She is effortlessly cool, and then they are. And by the way, one random thing that I will point out about the band is, and I'm going to show you guys on the camera real fast, the gatefold here. They're all beautiful. These men are shockingly handsome, all of them. And what's funny is that, you can't separate her beauty and their kind of collective beauty along with the music. And yet there's nothing shallow about any of the music itself. It's very like, they understood who, like, kind of what the perception of their audience was. And yet they were always kind of subverting that expectation. So love that. Keith.
Yeah, just an absolutely impeccable choice. Like, obviously you've got Smooth Operator, which is an anthem to so many of us. And then tying into like a lot of what we talked about tonight, about the 80s, about protest songs, you got When Am I Gonna Make a Living, which is a very anti-Thatcher government song.
Yep.
But with a beauty, it's not your usual sort of standard of protest song that's loud and angry and in your face. It's beautiful and melodic and harmonious, and just it's a peaceful protest in song format. Just a fucking great choice. Like we know from the last pod 5 years ago your love for Sade or Sade, or however we're going to pronounce it, and the fact that we've dragged it back into another one, I'm so happy about, because it just fits beautifully.
Well, thank you very much, Keith. And the last thing I'll say is, when am I going to make a living? Like, one of my favorite lyrics in that is hungry. She keeps repeating it. Hungry, but we won't give in. Hungry, but we won't give in. It is just
like, is there a better protest lyric than that?
Yeah.
You won't give in.
No, it's so interesting because you have this packaging of them beautiful on the, playing this, smooth music, the saxophones, everything like that, and finding a way to, subversively insert real political, real, substantive commentary. It's fantastic. All right, guys, we have done it. We've set a record.
We are 3 hours and 40 minutes in.
I've never been more proud of anything in my life.
This is the most kickabout pod we've ever done.
It's so kickabout. It's like kickabout.
So kickabout. Power. Matt is gonna shit a chicken.
It's fun. Well, guys, if you've made it to the end of this pod, we just want to say that we appreciate you. Hope you've enjoyed this. Look, I know pods are made for others, but genuinely, if no one else listened to this, guys, I've had an absolute blast spending my Sunday with you guys talking about an incredible decade of music. I've got so many, albums and rabbit holes I now want to go down because of that. Thank you all. Great picks. Really, really enjoyed this. Just a couple of notes. We will have this pod up soon. Whether this will be 1 or 2 parts, I will leave for the executives, the CEO, or the C-suite types at the Blue Room to make that determination. But one thing I can promise, we have a 20-track playlist of all 20 of our handpicked songs from each of these 20 albums. Les, I will get that. We'll get that up, and it'll come out at the same time as the pod does. We'll have this on both YouTube, and we'll have this on obviously all the normal channels. Hopefully, this is a podcast you can kind of slowly digest and consume over however many days while you guys are hopefully enjoying your time here at the end of the year. But for Kate Riley James, Keith Tomlin, Les Roberts, it's been an absolute pleasure. Before I finish up, guys, any final words before we wrap up?
I totally just ate a ham and cheese toasty in the second half of that there as well. I'm sorry, you guys. We were talking so long, I was freaking starving.
I don't blame you at all. I'm so sorry, Randall.
I've had no tea at this point, so I'm going to go and eat something now. All I have had is single malt whiskey. So,
hey!
Just before we sign off, I want to echo what Rob said. Like, if nobody listens to this, I don't give a shit. Because
I never
had
did.
an absolute blast. Like getting the gang back together, doing this whole albums pod again. Like the first one was great. This one has taken it to another level.
Yeah,
I can't wait for either the 70s or the 2000s.
Yeah.
In 2030. Oh my god.
Stop. We're not gonna. If we're gonna do this again, we can't wait that long. We're tempting fate. One of us. We're getting old. One of us could die before then, Kate. So
we'll be in our 50s by then, won't we, Rob?
What was that?
We'll be in our 50s by then.
Oh yeah, I can't. I gotta do one more in my 40s, guys.
See, I'm still all right. I'm only 40 now. I've got years ahead of me.
I've got 7 years yet as well. I'm good, lads. 2030. See you then.
I've got
Sounds great. Well, guys, this has been an absolute pleasure for all of us here at the Kickabout and the Blue Room. For Les, Keith, and Kate, I'm Rob Vera. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys again, hopefully, before 5 years. And obviously, Les, I'm sure you and I will be back for some actual regular Everton-related Kickabout at some point. But take care. Talk to you guys later.